Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 382. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot segulent, and the Duke of you know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we're going to be discussing Justice League of America, Justice League Dark. We also touch on Harley Quinn issue number 3 and the Joker's Daughter one-shot. We basically get current with all that. Actually, when I say Justice League Dark, I should step back. We're doing the Blight storyline, and we're actually caught up with the Trinity of Sin Pandora issue number 8, which is the most current issue that was released as of the time of our recording. So that's where we're at as far as that whole Justice League Dark storyline. It's funny how I think of that as a Justice League Dark storyline. Do you think of it that way?
Oh, always. Yeah, any of the Magic Universe, I do throw out Justice League Dark first, and then like, oh no, that occurred in this one, that occurred in this one.
Right. It feels like a big, the Supernatural verse storyline seems to be in there. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, this is the time of the month to start paying attention to the new deals that are going to be rolling in over at DCBService.com. End of February, beginning of March, they will start posting those deals. It's a great way to see what kind of bundles and special deals you can save on. Remember, they're a digital partner. Whenever you're using any of your digital books, if you link those accounts to your DCB Service account, it doesn't cost you anything more. You get 5% more from it, but it's a great way to support a sponsor of our show and other podcasts out there. If you're a podcast listener, you know there's a lot of podcasts that are supported by them. Please go to our website, click on the links, or we've always got them in the show notes. It's just a wonderful service, and I can't recommend it enough. Over at InStockTrades.com, The Invisibles hardcover book 1 is out. It's the deluxe edition. These are gorgeous volumes. It's $29.99 regularly, 45% off, only $16.49. It collects the first 12 issues of the series. If you haven't read this one, it's a very special Grant Morrison series. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Sensei, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show. Well, let's open up with Justice League number 28. The writer is Jeff Johns, with layouts by Evan Reese, with finishes by Joe Prada and Scott Hanna. Colors Rod Reese, with lettering by DZI Cienty, Sienty, with covers by Ivan Reese, Joe Prada, and Rod Reese, with a steampunk cover, which I didn't realize they did one, by Dan Panosian, with the assistant editor is Kate Dury, and group editor is Brian Cunningham.
Yeah, just apologize for name butcher. I thought I'd be doing the same thing through all the way through, because this is a great creative team. And one of the things that I really like about this book is it's felt like a flagship title since its relaunch when the New 52 kicked off. I think that's really important for the Justice League to feel that way. And I feel the same thing with Marvel with the Avengers. Those should feel like flagship titles. They're supposed to be your top-tier teams. This should be a book where there's a lot of things happening in there, and we should be looking to this book to be like the big event book. Whether it's involved in something like Forever Evil or not, there should be things happening here that make you go, wow, this is pivotal to the universe. I think one of the reasons why in recent years runs like Grant Morrison's are so looked to is when Grant Morrison was writing JLA, that was a book you looked to for things to be happening. The top-tier characters were there. It reflected what was going on in the larger universe as well. So if there was something going on in Superman's book, for example, like Superman Red, Superman Blue, that was folded into what was going on in JLA. And various events that happened throughout the DC universe occurred that way. So I think it's great right now that this feels like that centerpiece title, that these characters have events that are going on in their own titles, but they are reflected in their own way within Justice League. There's a sense of time passage where like, okay, this happened here. And I know that's going to happen outside of this event. The other thing I really like, though, in this event in particular, this is an opportunity now to once again introduce parts of the DC mythos that we all know and love back into the universe in a way that might introduce it to new fans, or maybe take fans who didn't care about the concept before and explain to them why they should. And I'm a big fan of them doing that with the New 52. Taking characters like right now the Metal Men. That was the key to this issue. It was about Cyborg reaching out and saying, okay, I don't have a team right now. I need to gather one. And we've seen his plight throughout these issues, which I've really loved because I've loved Cyborg's reintroduction with the New 52 and how close he is to what I know about the character at the core. And now we've got this guy reaching out to Will Magnus and saying, hey, wait a minute. I need something. I know you were working on this experiment. Can we access this? And we get to see an origin of these characters in the New 52, the Metal Men. I've always been kind of hot and cold with the Metal Men, and not because of the fact that I've disliked them. I just never had enough storytelling experience with them that I developed a deep attachment. There have been miniseries that I've seen them in recent years that has made me start having a soft spot for these characters. This was great for me because I really feel like this was the first time that I genuinely had an introduction to them that made me from start to finish understand the concept and get me excited about the Metal Men. Like, I really liked this to the point where I would be interested in seeking out more Metal Men stories based on this. And I've never had that experience before. I've never disliked them. I've enjoyed what I've read with them. I just never had this strong connection to them. This issue really, I thought, did this brilliant in one issue saying, this is what this concept's all about, and this is why you should care. And I think good writers are capable of doing that, where they make you just understand like why this is something important. It's clear that Jeff Johns really likes the Metal Men concept because there was a passion in these pages for these characters that I think bled on through. And a good writer can do that. They can make you feel that. That's what my experience. I don't know if you had the same experience I did, but that was my takeaway from this issue. What was yours?
Well, it's funny because when we were getting ready to record, you kept calling this the Metal Men issue, not Justice League. Let's talk about Metal Men, and it was kind of neat just hearing you get kind of some heavy passion for them. And the one thing you said that I thought was really kind of hit the nail with me is I always enjoyed Metal Men's story, but I never had any passion towards them. I never sat there after going, oh yeah, we need more of this. Oh, let me find other stuff. And there was always a disconnect between me and them. I saw them as some good stories, a lot of comedy. They were kind of a palate cleanser I would use or something like that. They never were in the Justice League level for me. And that was something that I would never have connected Metal Men and Justice League because they always looked as like a lower tier hero group, comedy relief, never a serious story arc with them. So this one issue was a really good eye-opener as to what can be done with these characters. They're not just goofy characters, goofy personalities. There is a level of seriousness that you can go with it, along with the humor, along with the enjoyment. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this one because it's more Cyborg, because Cyborg he's always been a favorite of mine, and he's rising up in the rankings, very steadily. So he's going to be up there, with the upper tier. And it's so seeing him go out, seeing him start rebuilding his Justice League or rebuilding the heroes, reuniting them, getting them together to stand tall was a really awesome issue. And as you talk about, this was a great origin issue. It let everyone know who we got, who they are, what's going on, why they were created, and why you should pay attention to them. I think it's kind of neat, and I have to say that I am thinking long term on the characters. I'm still not gonna be chammering and claiming let's get a Metal Men solo series, but they have sparked my interest. They have got me seeing, okay, where this goes next. Within this Forever Evil title, I want to see them active because I think dealing Cyborg and the Metal Men, dealing with one of the last heroes on Earth, seeing how they step up, what they have to do. I think there's definitely now an interest and a passion, rising for these characters.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. I'm like, I would be interested based on this issue alone in a Metal Men series just to see where they go with it. On the flip side of it, if they use them to just kind of add some life and flair to the DC universe, that's a great reason to introduce them this way as well. I don't care which way it goes with them. I just love the validity of the introduction of them into this. They just add a flavor to the universe. And I think that's important to the New 52 when they do this. Spoiler was recently reintroduced into the comics as well. And I think she's the same thing. They introduced her in a way that makes sense, where there's going to be an arc with her that we're going to care about. And I think we're getting that with Metal Men. And these are characters that it's really important to do that with, because they just make the universe itself more interesting. They don't have to all lead into a series. If they do, great. If they don't, that's fine as well. It's just introducing them instead of dropping like 500 characters on us at once and going, you should care about all of them. Making strategic choices to introduce concepts back into this universe in a way that makes them matter, I think, is critical. And I felt this issue did a really good job of that with Metal Men, to the point where I would be interested in a series out of this. It doesn't have to be, but I'd be interested in one if it went that route. I don't care what they do with them at this point. I want to see more wherever it goes.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I also got to say with the Justice League, the revamping and the Cyborg version 2.0. One, he needed a new body because he was because Grid ripped his old body off of his human form. But I liked when they rebuilt it. He's like, hey, let's change some stuff. I want to be a little bit more sleeker. Yeah, I'm going to give up a little bit of strength, but I'm going to go for movement, and I'm less of a tank. And I thought that was a really neat thing to do, especially because who he is, and he's not just this big brute who bashes people. No, he's cyborg. He's connected to the world. He's the living computer, or however you want to refer to him. The sleek design actually really fits well with him, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
It fits modern tech too.
Yeah.
Because tech is going more minimalist, more simple. So this actually looks very modern, and he could always accessorize,
It's not like definitely beef up the armor.
Yeah. I mean, you can always do attachments and things like that, but it does look very modern, very today. I loved the relaunch version of him, but it makes sense when you're going this route, and he's grid-free, which is always very nice as well. That's going to be an interesting part. What happens with Grid at the end of all this? I'm insanely curious about that. Because Grid was a part of him. So what happens to Grid? Does Grid get destroyed? Does Grid leave with the crime syndicate? Or depending on what happens to the crime syndicate, I don't know.
I'm gonna guess that we don't get rid of Grid. That you can't really. If he's connected in some way, shape, or form to the internet, you can't get rid of him completely. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to get Grid's going to return later on. Eventually the bad guys will be defeated. The good guys will be there. It'll be a dirty, messy, ugly victory, but it will be a victory. But within those, within that the pattern, I'm thinking Grid's going to be somewhere hidden, because you can't destroy him. He's not just a physical being. He is this total consciousness that's spanning out throughout the internet. So I think that's, later on we're going to get a return of Grid.
I loved the behind the scenes story with Will, and talking about how there was such a financial issue going on there. I'm going to question the 6 months ago with a reference that was thrown out later on by the Metal Men themselves. But I really liked when they were pushing on the button, and this really became this whole thing as far as, Will, we've got millions of dollars invested in you. I need to see some form of justification for what you're doing in there. It's too secretive. Yet, for a guy like Will, who's passionate about this, and also realizes that his reputation is on the line, it's got to be hard to be an inventor, a scientist, a builder, anything in those type of fields where you're developing something new, and you have this concept on paper and in your mind of where you want this thing to go and where you believe it can go. But there's a risk factor. What if it doesn't work? As that's part of experimenting. There is the possibility that either it doesn't work or it goes in a direction that you drastically did not expect. And that's an interesting pressure point that I thought was well laid out in this. I thought it was really key to not drop the metal men themselves on us first, to give us a little insight into Will and what this looked like for him leading up to the discovery of the metal men. That was part of the connecting point for me. Because Will, to me, always was kind of like, because I didn't have the rich history with the metal men that maybe some of our listeners do have, I didn't have this kind of attachment to him other than the fact that I knew that Platinum had a thing for him and that he created the Metal Men. But it was always like the Metal Men were the quirky characters that were in the forefront, and Will was always a background character for me that I didn't really have this affinity for, other than it was cool to see him come in as a technical expert every so often in a crossover. Now, I feel like I know him. And that was, I think, something that Johns did very well here. I was like totally riding along with him saying, okay, this dude's got a lot of pressure on his plate. This is his thing, his passion. He got the funding that he was looking for, which had to have been incredibly hard. There had to have been enough of a presentation that really got him the money. And now all of a sudden this guy's got to produce, or else he's ruined. I mean, if he doesn't produce on this, with the kind of money that's behind this, it would be the end of his career. I felt like I really knew that in this, yet he's still passionate about his direction on all of this. I love the uncertainty of it all. It just made me feel like he was more human instead of this whiz that like was a brainiac that we've always seen in the background, and it was hard to connect with the man. I felt like I connected with the man.
Yeah, and making him younger than what I'm used to was another nice touch, because I always pictured him as older, just how you're saying, just the brainiac behind the scenes, never the main character. Never, it was always about just the middleman. It wasn't about Will, and I think that was kind of neat. And when this opening with the senator and the general and the sign, no humans allowed except Will, I immediately thought the metal men made that sign, that Will wasn't actually around. Because when they were calling and they wouldn't meet face-to-face, only emails, I'm thinking, holy crud, the metal men are actually in charge. Will's not around. And I was thinking that's how they were going to go with this whole thing. So when the next page, when you actually see him and you start seeing, okay, it's not the metal men in church, he's just really antisocial. All right, I get that.
Yeah, it's... I think that's one of the things that I really liked about this was there were surprises for me because I didn't know the direction of this other than we saw them on the cover. With it being embedded in this Forever Evil storyline, I didn't know where this was going to go. I was really glad that they took the time to say, hey, this would be a great time to do a full issue really devoted to the origin. Because that, I felt, was a really strong strength of all this. It took its time, delivered it well. There were some key moments, like seeing the metal men start forming through the responsometers and Will's reaction to all of it. Like, we were getting to know their personalities as Gold came online and Tin and Lead. We got to start seeing some of their personality traits. Gold online and looking good. I love that kind of stuff as it goes through. Tin having to come out after that and going, and looking slightly better than average, but my vocal program, it's like Tin is going to be constantly somebody who does not have this sense of self-worth. And I really liked that I was getting to know them, but seeing Will's reaction of it worked. That kind of shock and awe, which would happen with an experiment. You want to believe that it's going to happen. You want to believe that your theories are sound, but to actually see it come to life, and maybe not necessarily in the way that you had expected or intended. He even, when he's talking to Cyborg earlier and throughout this issue, we see an uncertainty over the role of the Metal Man in all of this. It was just something that I really found very rich, and it was easy to get attached to, because I felt like, again, I could relate. That's really critical when you're introducing characters. You've got to give me a relatability to them. I felt like a lot of relatability to this right away.
Yeah, it's, again, the comedic moments of the Metal Men is always something like, okay, this is something. It's an immediate comfort with him when they first introduce him. Like you said, Gold's on London, looking good. I did chuckle about that. I just even like with Lead and Iron, you got Lead he's not the quickest, in the bunch, and you got Iron, the powerhouse. Iron, oh yeah, and he's pumping Iron, and it's flexing. He's got that physical presence. I thought those were again, bam, right from the get go, immediately comfortable. Then you see like Mercury. I always thought him as the practical jokester, goofy guy. He's got a little bit of an edge to him. He's got a little bit of problem with humans. And I thought, again, all right, we're taking our own little spin. We're dealing with our own little stuff on these guys. And immediately you get that connectability and you get that availability. And it gets you wondering, is he down the line, he'd be their conspiracy theorist. He'd be their guy who would look, at, this and say, no, it's not that. It's got to be something different. I can kind of see a little bit of the paranoia and just the antisocial, or however you want to, refer to him in that way. It's there, it's that, and starting to think off page for him.
If you do that page where it says, we're your metal men, and you see the whole team there. The thing that's great about that shot, and this is really commend the art team on this one, every character has their personality laid out right there. I mean, you know who they are looking right at that image. That's really, really terrific art. From Tin cowering a little bit behind Platinum to Gold with his hair and his kind of hey guy.
Hey, he's in the Superman pose, dude.
Yeah.
Look, he's like, ta-da.
Yeah. And but Mercury, exactly what you're talking about with Mercury is right there in the stance and the way he's carrying himself. A very different posture and facial expression there. And the same thing with Iron. As you start going through the characters, you really see that play out. I love that. And Lead, great example of Lead with him being kind of more of the Juggernaut style character. And I don't want to oversimplify that, but he isn't as, Iron is kind of I am the muscle man. I have, the athleticism and that ability to him. Whereas, Lead's your tank.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah. And again, there is a definite difference between Lead and Iron, and it's obviously there's difference between the two metals. They have different types of properties. Their personalities have that. I thought that was kind of neat that he's not just hey Lenny, let me pet the pretty rabbits. He wasn't that kind of dopey, but he's not completely quick as everybody else is. But it still has his strength, still has his focus.
I hate to say it, out of the whole batch, I think the easiest one to hang out with would be Tin. Because he's the most humble.
Yeah.
I think what would get old fast would be this constant need to reassure him. Hey, you're okay, dude.
It's all right, Tim. You're our buddy. You can hang with us. That would get old really quickly. And I think Lead would actually be pretty cool to hang out with as well. And just because it's that down to earth connectability. He doesn't think, look at me, I'm something special. He's like, hey, I'm Lead. Hey, how you doing? And I think you could just sit there and hang with him.
Yeah, I do too. Because I think, what it is? It's funny that we're picking out the two most humble of the batch. There's an interesting point in that.
Well,
But I think there comes a point where egos or extreme emotions will get quickly old. I like that about the team, though. I found myself, as I was going through there, wondering which one of these would be the most fun to hang out with. If you had the opportunity, which again shows an attachment because you're starting to think off page with the characters, and that's what I found myself doing as I was reading this, like wondering, who would be the most annoying. I've got to give props to Gold.
See, you think Gold would be the most annoying?
Oh yes.
See, on one hand, part of me leads towards Mercury being the most annoying because because as I said, I think he would be one of those conspiracy theorist type of guys, and initially, it can be fun to argue and discuss matters with them, but when you get to the guys who are so into it, they don't give up their conspiracy. They don't give up the one answer, and it makes it very. You get to the point where you get very angry. Whereas with Gold, you're like, yeah, Gold, you are the best, and you can basically just you pamper him, you cater to the ego a little bit, and you can just move on to whatever else you're doing.
You know what? I will agree with you on because Mercury is so outwardly, even in his direction with Will. Why is this one talking so slow? He would be your constant piece of negativity. So I would get that. Gold to me is a close second, though.
Oh, definitely. Definitely gold is a very close second because that would get, hey, I'm perfect. Everybody wants gold. Actually, no, people would rather have platinum over gold. Sorry, it's a little bit more precious. And that comment even gets brought up when gold and platinum are going at it. Because he's like, hey, I'm the alpha robot. I'm the most valuable metal. Really? You don't know anything about platinum, do you? Because it's more valuable. And I thought that was a neat kind of conflict between the two of them, because those are your two alpha characters, your two main alpha personalities. And that's something I would like to see down the line. Again, talking off page, talking continuation. Would Platinum have more of a leadership role, or have one of those type of where she's actually in charge, but she lets Gold think he's in charge? One of those type of where she's the true leader of the team, but Gold steps up front and said, hey, I'm Gold.
It's actually a very balanced team. If they can come to appreciate each other's strengths and weaknesses and learn how to work through that, it could be a tremendous team, because they've really got all of the emotional elements, all of the physical attributes, all of the abilities are there. And even the ability to be checks and balances for each other on a mission. By the fact that you're mentioning that like Mercury would be more of the skeptic, there is a value to that. As long as Mercury can see the value to the others, which will be very difficult. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting team if you could see the dynamic, developing and working out. The trick to making these guys into a viable series, to me, is the balance between comedic and serious tone. You need to find a strong balance between both, because there's a comedy charm to them, but a believability to them in this issue as well. That balance really made them work for me. And I think that's the key to knowing what works for the Metal Men and how to make them feel very today and very current. I loved the bit when the explosion went off and they came in, and then all of a sudden the Metal Men were like very mannequin-like. It went down to all traces of personality were gone. They looked more like, straight up robots to be used for the purposes that were mentioned, until they hear what the intentions are for them. You want us to be killers? You want us to do what now? And then all of a sudden, bam, personalities are back. I liked that ability to no, wait a minute, we don't know what's coming through the door, the comfort level with what is coming through the door. Let's blend into the environment, and let's just wait and see what happens here. Gather information and then react. That human quality that was there, because we all do that in new situations. We kind of sleek back. Most of us do that. Not everyone does that, but I know for myself, when I'm in a new situation, I get a little nervous about it. I want more information. I want to gather that. I found that to be a very human quality here. Their reaction was different to the experience that was going on. And I really liked that choice, because I've never seen them that way before.
Yeah, it was cool to see them react. And again, everything you said of where they went, and when the explosion happened and the government came in, they had that plain robotic look. And it's the it's the nice slow play, just seeing, okay, what are we getting ourselves into? We know who Will is, kind of, but this is a whole new thing. We're just going to downplay what we can do. And then once they saw that we got to get the heck out of here, bam, that's when they drop the disguise and they're themselves again. And I thought that was a really neat way to handle their escape and just how they get out of everything. But then also the fact that our unknown person throws the prototype into the vat of hazardous waste. I thought that, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, who is this going to be? And just trying to think, is there going to be a new type of metal men, a plutonium or uranium
That's
or
chemo.
something? What?
That's chemo.
Yeah, I know. At the time, I didn't know who it was.
Oh, okay.
Now obviously by the end of the issue, you see it's chemo and you see them deal with.
I thought you were saying that you still didn't know. I'm sorry. You were saying this was your experience as reading it.
Yeah, at the time, I'm trying to figure out what metal is it going to pull in. That's why I was just trying to figure out. I wasn't thinking chemo. At the time. So when he makes his appearance, I was like, oh, chemo, cool. That's how he came about. But it was just, again, it's a great story. And as we see the Metal Men hiding out in Will's apartment, I got to admit, I didn't see them hiding in that first panel. I didn't notice the bright gold, the bright red, and the platinum. I'm like, oh, and I'm just like, oh, God, why did I miss that? Because 3 panels down the line, you see Tin's face. And I immediately looked back up again and said, oh, they're right there. Plain as day. Why did I miss that?
So here's my question. What happened to chemo? Because like we see the heroes, the metal men, kind of just recognize, wow, this is our chance to really. It was their first opportunity to enact their actual function of saving, and even Mercury jumps into that. See a human do this, ha! He still reacted the way that their primary function was to save human lives. So to see them just immediately jump in and sacrifice themselves, recognizing that working together, they could bring that all down, I just thought that was really just fantastic.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, it's the following the first rule, protect people, and I was like, yes, we always talk about the heroes, protect the innocents. Rule number one. It's always what the heroes have to do, and it's a lot of times the weakness that the villains exploit in the heroes, that they're going to protect the innocent people, maybe even possibly sacrifice themselves. And seeing the metal men jump right into this, that was one of those cool hoorah moments, especially this great 2-page spread where they're pulling the humans away from chemo, and you see all of them, even Tin, the cowardly Tin, who is never quite sure what he's doing. He's got the little kid and he's running and getting the kid out of there. I was like, yeah, this is the metal men. This is kind of neat.
See, my experience with it's funny. I've known the metal men for quite a bit of my life in the sense that crossovers, especially things like DC Comics Presents and stuff like that, where we got to see them team up with like Superman and those type of things. But I never got to see them in this lens. I would love to, if there's a Metal Man fan listening to the show that like, okay, I have a rich history with them. I love these characters. I write back to their roots and things like that. How does this translate for you? It's obviously the new universe version of them. Is this at the core how you've always viewed the Metal Men? Is it a true modernization of the characters? Because I've been a big fan of the new 52. Sure, you're modernizing, you're changing some things with origins and things like that to make them feel very today. But at the core, characters feel like they should are the ones that are. I guess the ones that feel like they should are the ones that are my favorites coming out of this. I used Spoiler before as an example. I felt like her introduction is very true to kind of my history with the character, going back to her roots of being kind of that outsider who's caught up in the mess, so to speak, which we're seeing with her. But yet always having that something more to her, that edge that makes you believe like she should be a part of the team. She is valid. She brings something unique to the table. This, for the Metal Men, for me, it really just there's a sense of validity to the concept and a uniqueness to the concept that it brings to the DC universe that I really like. I mean, I just think they're just a great group of characters. I want to see more. I'm excited about Metal Men. And if you told me like a year ago, like, Sean, you're going to be really excited about Metal Men, I never disliked them. I'm not, saying that they're bashing them or saying they were horrible characters or anything like that. I always liked them as guest stars, but I'm more interested in seeing them a little bit more in the forefront now, which that part I think is really, that's a home run when you can say that as a reader walking out, whether or not it happens. The fact that I actually, have a sense of affinity towards them is a victory.
Now, who do you think it was that threw the prototype into the toxic waste?
I'm hoping it's not Vic's dad.
Ooh, see, that's a name I didn't even enter my head. I was thinking one of two people, either that Secretary of Defense or Evil Alfred. This would be part of their his ultimate plans to bring, the crime syndicate back over here. Sorry, I drew a blank there for a second.
You're right, that secretary could be it. It could be, one of the rival scientists that we've seen throughout history in the DC universe. I honestly didn't think of him, and I agree with you on that being a possibility as well. With his pressure because he's probably getting pressure from the top down to produce as well. So to see him doing it, you're right, there's a validity there. I don't know. And I guess the only reason why my mind went to Vic's dad, only reason, and I'm not saying that it's any more, because I like your idea even better, to be honest. The reason why my mind went to Vic's dad, though, is just because Cyborg's a guest in this one, and knowing, how his experimentations led to... He wasn't afraid to do a drastic experiment on his own son. So to toss that in there does not seem out of the realm of possibility to me at this point, This could be something where I could see Vic going back to, Dad, you did what? I don't know. But I like your idea, to me, with looking at this issue, makes more sense. So I would be happy either way. And if it was somebody else, that can't be a throwaway, right? We're going to see something from that.
there's got to be. That was the thing that led me to go with Evil Alfred. Mm-hmm. Because as the new Metal Men are coming online, they're going to go with Vic to help fight Forever Evil. It could, within the course of the battle, be released that Alfred's the one who created Chemo with after stealing the tech. So that's why I went Evil Alfred. So it's my two front runners are either Alfred or the Secretary of Defense
or the General.
I don't think it's the General. That never really. I didn't think she didn't have that type of personality to me that would do something so boneheaded as to let's just see what happens. This was a kind of I didn't see her. I kind of look for more of the Weasley and or pure evil person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As far as because I think the Secretary would be looking for some form of. Was obviously very invested, was obviously receiving some form of pressure, like, this is where this money's gone. Why aren't we seeing more with this? And I don't know. I like that idea a great deal. So I don't know. I like your options. I like yours better than mine, to be honest.
Yeah. And again, it's, you think about it, $600 million. They're going to... Questions are being asked for that much money. He's got to come up with results. So there could be the desperation on his part. And he's not a scientist. He doesn't understand what the outcome could be. So he could actually not have thought that would cause a problem because he just was thinking more of we need something.
Uh-huh. Good choice. Our next review is going to be on Trinity of Sin Pandora, issue number 8. The writer on this one is Ray Fawkes, Francis Portela on art, Hi-Fi on colors, Desi Cienti and Taylor Esposito on letters, Julian Totino Tedesco on cover, Harvey Richards, associate editor, Brian Cunningham and Will Moss are the editors. And apologies for any name butchery in that. Wow, do I really enjoy this book. We're 8 issues in of Pandora, and she's become a character that I really care about. But this is part of this larger story arc of Blight, the Forever Evil Blight crossover that's been going on through Justice League Dark, Constantine, Phantom Stranger, and Pandora. And each of the issues have moved forward the story, but also have given us a unique opportunity to look at things from the perspective of the main character or characters of the specific books in question. In this case, it gives us, it takes us back a little bit to the events that were happening concurrently with what was going on with John Constantine's book, Constantine number 11, and then takes us up to the point where we saw the cliffhanger in issue number 11, then takes us through progressing the story further to an end game that's coming up. I have been a fan with how this story has been delivered. When you do a crossover like this, I'm a big fan of these supernatural books that are going on. I really am hoping that there's a continued focus on these type of books after the Forever Evil event's over, because I'm really enjoying when it all comes together and you see how much of the mythos, like Nick Necro being in this, just for an example, these characters are being brought back in, the history with Zatanna and Constantine and him being brought into this, Pandora's history, Celestials, this overarching concept of a larger mystic world that has been really developed in a way that I don't ever remember this being developed. It was in individual titles. Like Wonder Woman always had a rich mythos. But like this sense of these things gradually connecting together so that like, yes, you've got gods over here, but you've got this presence over here. These are all interconnected now in the New 52 in a way that I don't remember it being so richly connected. Everyone's aware of everybody else. These things all happen. It ties into a greater religion that, is in the real world, so to speak. I like that. I like that they play around with that. It doesn't change my views on anything, but I really love when they play around with and develop a religious background to a universe in a way that you could understand how there would be different sorts of cults and groups and churches and all the real mishmash that we see in the current real world would exist in the New 52 as well, just uniquely different because you've got these characters with backgrounds tied into gods and celestials and mystic, Nanda Parbat and those type of things. All of that is brought in a way that I feel is really rich, and I really enjoy this. How have you been with this crossover, though? Have you been digging this one? For me, I've been really enjoying this. It's a big side story to Forever Evil. Where is it for you?
Well, actually, we're on the same page here with this one and how much I've enjoyed this. Again, the magic stuff has been something that I've really enjoyed throughout the New 52 because they're keeping everything nice and connected, and it's all playing off of each other. They're doing a very solid magic universe within the DC universe. It's kind of like how we talk about the Bat books keeping everything connected, or the Green books keeping everything connected. Mm-hmm. They're taking this magic universe and making sure that if you're reading this stuff, you're not seeing a different Swamp Thing here. You're not seeing a different John Constantine than you're seeing over there. You're seeing the same type of characters. You're seeing interconnected stories. And I gotta admit that, as I'm laying this out, there's been a couple times where the magic universe, I've stockpiled some of this stuff. I'm trying to find, it's about making time to actually read and having other stuff going on that I couldn't sit down and read, but I was keeping the magic universe stockpiled. So I was reading, 3, 4, 5 issues all back to back, one boom, boom, boom right after another. And that made for some really enjoyable reading where you're going from one part of the story in one title to another part, and you're just seeing this flow through.
See, that to me is always very telling too. I stockpile books from time to time as well, because just time. It's not an issue of quality. It's an issue of, this is just a book I want to get to. I just haven't had a chance to. Here's a sign of a good book. If you're stockpiling it and you can read 3 or 4 issues and that's not tedious, it's exciting, and you can't wait to start reading the next issue and you're glad you have it there immediately to do that, that's a sign that you've got a great book. On the other hand, if that starts becoming tedious, that's a book that slowly starts making its way to the chopping block for me. It's like I'm just not connecting. It doesn't mean it's a bad book. It's not for me. That's when I start paring down. And I do that from time to time with books where I'll start looking at books and start chopping them down because of the fact that I'm like, you know what, I read 4 issues of this in a row. I'm not really connected with it. I usually still give a book a chance at that point too, because there was usually a reason why I picked up the book to begin with. There was an interest that drew me in. So I usually give it the next arc after what I'm mentioning to see, okay, was it just an arc that didn't connect with me and then I need to see the next arc? More often than not, if it was a concept I was interested in and it's a creative team that I have faith in, the next arc will make me see why that arc previously happened. There's a flow that you needed that arc in order to go to this wow moment that comes in the next arc that reconnects me. But if it doesn't at that point, it's just not a book for me, and that's when I jump to something else that is for me. But in this case, the magic books, I have had to stockpile some of them as well from time to time, just because, there's so many titles that we're trying to read. And rereading and trying to stay caught up with them, for the purpose of the podcast, I have from time to time, Constantine was a book that I had to read 4 issues in a row. Pandora I've stayed caught up with since the beginning. And I think it's just because it's a book that's only been 8 issues in. I was interested in the character concept. Phantom Stranger, I stockpiled for a little bit, but now I'm glued, especially with the whole... Once I got really into his whole family story that was going on, where he had to sacrifice them, I was sold. Like, something just clicked with me, and I'm like, I've got to stay caught up with this guy. But I'm all caught up now and loving every minute of this. And I love that everything that's happened historically with these characters since their inception in the New 52 is a pivotal part of what's going on right now in this crossover event for them. And I love that it's a side story that if you're reading Forever Evil, you don't need to be reading this. But if you are, the idea that the crime syndicate, because they're so scared of this being that's coming, would go to these people and say, hey, Nick Necro, let's start putting together a weapon, a mystical weapon, and we're going to use this as a way to bring down. The debate comes up, hey, we're the heroes here. We're trying to save everybody. Nick Necro brings us to the table. While I'll never look at Nick Necro and say, man, what a great guy. I have trouble arguing against his point of view here. And the way he's going about it is wrong. But the idea of addressing what's coming is right.
Yeah, and when they first started talking about with this giant, setup they have in Nanda Parbat, I was immediately thinking, okay, this is just the prison for the mystic people because the crime syndicate doesn't really know how to deal with them. So they're going to keep them in this cage and trap. And I never thought of, they're using this as a weapon to take out the big bad that's coming. I thought that was a nice twist on it, because especially even you talk about with Nick Necro saying, hey, we're the heroes here. And it gets you kind of gets you thinking, who is right, who is wrong? Could he have very easily, gotten, rigged up everybody and have a power setup and they could all do a power boost when it was needed without having to take them by force? Yes, no. If it was a hero asking it, they may volunteer, and they may step up saying, we'll lend our energy to do it. But we got these villains who are in charge. So they're not going to take the chance of saying, will they voluntarily potentially die to save the world so we can live, or do we have to force them to do it? So you got to do the dark stuff. You got to be evil. You got to capture them, experiment on them, try to figure all this stuff out just to make sure you can stop the big bad. And it's that question. Definitely, yes, they're evil. Yes, they're bad guys, but they are fighting off maybe a bigger evil.
Mm-hmm. And that's where what happens to Night Mariners, for example, that's where you immediately go, okay, Nick, as good a guy as you're trying to present yourself as being in this case, and how noble your intentions are in this particular case, now we can start questioning you a little bit, buddy. This is like what you're doing to her is really wrong. I loved that. One of the things I like about mystical stories are when I feel like these beings, especially like Pandora and what goes on with her and Zoriel, there is a moment there where the two of them just kind of seem to, I don't want to say give up, because that's not what they're doing. They come to a realization that we're not a party to. She sees Zoriel reacting in a certain way, and it connects with her, and she goes, wait a minute. There is a larger plan in place here. I need to be a part of that. I need to follow Zoriel's play, because there's an opportunity here that I'm not aware of. So she gives in. I just thought it was a very interesting sequence of events, because I felt like that's where it's really important with Phantom Stranger, with Pandora, with Zoriel. They should feel like beings that, while we ride along with them, while there's moments where we deeply connect with them, there's also something that they're a party to that we are never going to be. That makes them interesting. It separates them from even Constantine, who's got that quality, but that's just because he's secretive. In her case, it's not because she's secretive. She's really in on something we're not going to be a part of. And I like that distinction. There's a hierarchy in this crew that I think is really interesting. And I loved that about her and Phantom Stranger. I think they're very well written right now, where there's moments where we can richly identify with them, and there's moments like that, where in that moment I immediately was like, oh, that's cool. She really does feel different in this moment because she just knows. And you can't wait to see what that's going to lead to, but it feels right. And there's something to that. I think it was just a unique writing with her that I thought just worked really well in this storyline to identify what kind of a character she really is.
Yeah, and it's, you talked earlier a little bit about it with just these religious, icons and these religious themes that are going throughout this. And that's something I have deeply enjoyed, is just the presence, and it's, I saw. It was one of the times, I think it was in New York or Chicago Con, can't remember. There was a panel about gods and the DC in the comic book universe, and people brought up the fact about, will you ever see Jesus Christ in a comic book, or will you ever see God? How do you handle God and hell and heaven and all that type of stuff? And one of the underlining comments that we're going through is, you can have these Greek gods, you can have the Norse gods, because there's really nobody who's still worshiping them, who's actually still believes in that faith. But you start dealing with actual real faith. People that are currently, out there saying, this is what I believe, this is who I am, you could very easily anger, upset, and just completely throw something off keel if you go too much into it. If they were to start really pulling in the biblical references and say they're kind of putting themselves in a corner where they're saying, okay, this is heaven, this is hell, and right here is why we went with this Bible. Well, now you've got these other groups who aren't going to like that. Now, well, we got to pull this in, and so they're keeping the presence very vague and very mysterious out there. I thought that is a nice, way to handle it, because you're getting, there's still something else that we don't know. Even though we're getting part of these stories, we're seeing, the presence and the power levels, etc. But it's not completely painting it into a corner or saying definitively 1, 2, 3, this is what it is.
I applaud, though, I think it's a risky choice to make the Phantom Stranger Judas. Like, I think that's edgy. I think first of all, it doesn't change I'm a Catholic. It doesn't change my beliefs at all. It's a character in a comic book. I liked the choice. I think it's interesting, and I don't think it slaps in the face, any sort of belief that I have. I just thought, I think it's a very interesting choice for the character, and I recognize that this is a comic book character. This is not, this is not meant to be a religious statement, and I like that. I think that's edgy. They skirt a line with the character when they do it, and they're not in your face with it, constantly, but obviously with the presence and with Zoriel and Angel and the Phantom Stranger and their interactions, they are skirting the line of real religion there and doing it, I think, quite well. And I don't feel like, even if they spelled things out even further, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that. I like it. I think it's a little edgy. I think, it's fiction. It's meant to be fiction. It's not meant to be a religious statement. And that, to me, is the importance of it. It's touching on things that are going to make people think and enjoy. Like, wow, what an interesting choice for a character. Gives a real sense of more of a real world history. Because it gives us really a starting point of where Phantom Stranger was born and how long this character has really been around. I just think that frame of reference, I think, is really terrific. Because it brings something into the DC universe that's rich, and it's fiction. It's not. It doesn't tie in any way in hurting my religion. I like that. I like that when comics do that. It's bold.
Oh God, yeah. And this has been, you look at just as the issues with the experimentation, because you mentioned Naughty Nurse, what happens to her, and you're just like, whoa. But even. It doesn't kill her, and her body's already starting to heal itself. And, these mystic characters have these properties that, if you had fried, say, Batman, it would be a lot longer of a recovery time. There would be a lot more. We'd have to deal with surgeries and or, baths and, and various whatnot stuff they'd have to do to get a regular character back up. But the Mystic, you can explain a rapid healing process. You can explain them being able to take massive amounts of energy or have parts of their body just stripped from them. And it's okay because of that world of magic. Same thing with Swamp Thing. You could really blow him up into multiple pieces, and because he's kind of a plant guy, he can sort of pull himself together, or he could grow off of the existing shoots that are there, and the core of the body can come back. I thought that's something I've always really enjoyed in the magic stories being told.
I should clarify, it's Nightmare Nurse too. I don't know if I called her Naughty Nurse as well, but the character's Nightmare Nurse.
Yes.
Because it takes a whole lot of different reference point. If you think that way.
Sorry?
Well, and I don't know, maybe I said it too, so I don't remember. You notice it differently when somebody else says it. So I could have very well said it first and started us on that whole chain of events.
No, I constantly call her Naughty Nurse.
Okay.
And it's just, I don't know, I forget Nightmare, and for some reason, just because she's just the naughty girl, I'm like, oh, okay, and that's where every time I read it, I do say that. So
as we're looking through the pages, I like that we see characters like Blue Devil hooked up and Enchantress hooked up. These are characters who are in the larger DC universe, but are no longer part of these books proper on a regular basis. But it would make sense that if you're searching for these characters to be power sources, wow, would that be fantastic. What happens with Deadman? He's trapped in there by Constantine, which is a real vicious move from Constantine. It's no wonder that this guy just really does not have a friendship base. And I like that about Constantine. My big worry when they were ending the Vertigo series is that we would lose that element of Constantine. We haven't. This is exactly who Constantine was in his Vertigo series as well. You know that these are things that Constantine at times feels remorseful about. These do affect him on some level, yet he feels justified for a variety of reasons when he tends to do these things. In this case, it's all about Zatanna, so he'll lock him in this body if it'll get him Zatanna. There's no other way to justify it. That's Constantine's drive in this one. But other times, he is doing things kind of like Nick Necro. They aren't that far from each other, in the sense that he believes that if he has to sacrifice somebody in order to accomplish a goal, he will do so with no hesitation at all. He will feel bad about it in a way that Nick Necro won't. And I do think that's the distinction between him and Nick Necro. He's haunted at times by his choices, but that doesn't mean he would choose differently. And that's an interesting thing with Constantine. He reminds me in certain ways. In the first Dark Tower book from Stephen King, Roland has to make a choice with a little boy. He regrets it and learns later on that he could never do that again. But he makes this choice to continue on his quest for the Dark Tower, sacrificing this boy. It haunts him. Constantine is just a step darker than that, because he was haunted by those choices but would not change them. Yeah. If anything, he would probably push them further if he thought it would further the end goal and justify, like, okay, I made this choice because of this. And, you know, it hurts because this was somebody I was close to, and there is a love and an affinity for people that Constantine has. But he's the way he is with people. He doesn't let himself become outwardly attached to people because he knows at any point in time he might have to sacrifice those close to him because that's just the way he's wired. What a weird way to live, but that makes him such a fascinating character. Pandora's evaluation of him in the beginning of this issue I thought was phenomenal. Because if you're somebody who's a newer reader to these books, maybe you just because you're a Forever Evil fan and you're like, I'm going to read this Blight crossover. I like how these books have been introducing the characters in a way that I feel like you could jump off of this crossover and you could continue reading these books. You're up to speed on who everyone is. The relationship with Nick Necro and Constantine's here. The relationship with Constantine and Zatanna's here. The relationship with the Justice League Dark team is here. Everything you need is here. You know who Phantom Stranger is. You know who Pandora is. All of the major players are really presented well in this crossover, which I think when you're doing a crossover, if you miss the opportunity to do this, you're making a huge mistake. Because it's an opportunity to attach new readers to a concept. Maybe people who never tried it before, who've been like interested, but like for whatever reasons, you know what, I just didn't have the money in my budget, or, you know, and this could be an opportunity for those readers who are saying, you know what, for this event, I have some room in my budget. Maybe I just dropped a few titles, or, you know, I really want to delve into this. This is an opportunity to open those readers to this. I think Blight's doing a great job of really laying it all out for you and who everyone is and why you should care. Because I really love this miniseries, this crossover thing that's going on, because I feel like it's just furthered my understanding of who these people are in a way that I think is great through their interactions with each other.
And, you know, something you just mentioned kind of triggered in my head because I went from issue to issue to issue. When I was initially doing that, they didn't have the numbering system saying, you know, for part 1, part 2, part 3. And when I first started reading, I was like, wait, which one is it? And there was a hesitation for a second. I was thinking, you know, they should have put the numbers. But then as I'm reading through the different issues, I'm seeing how they set this thing up that if you don't read the other stories, you're still going to get a full story. If you only read Pandora and didn't read Justice League Dark or Constantine, you would understand what's happening to her, where she is,
really?
And why everything's happening. Yeah. And it was a neat thing because they bring enough of the information in that, and it was something that I really liked. And I was like, okay, this is why they didn't put the number. This is why they didn't say part 1, part 2, the formal part 1 or formal part 2 of the Blight crossover, because you still get a full story just in Pandora or just in Justice League Dark or just in Constantine. But they made it, they wrote it well enough that if you're getting all of it, you get a more complete Magic universe story. And I thought that was really talented on all their parts.
So did you read it that way initially, where like you read the Pandora issues, then you read the Justice League Dark issues, then you read the Phantom Stranger issues? Or I mean, is that the only way you've read it? I think that's fascinating because I did not read it that way. How did you do that?
I've read it both ways. I've read it where I follow the storyline, and I read it where I'm just playing catch up. And I'm like, okay, I know I got to read some Constantine. Okay, 1 Constantine, 2 Constantine. Then I go back and I read Justice League Dark. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the stuff they talked about there. Or Pandora, oh, yeah, that's how they talk there. And then when I did a full just sit down and get a full feel of the Blight story, I read everything as they were happening, and you're jumping back and through the different titles, and that was a really cool experience. But just when I was reading just Constantine or just Justice League Dark, it was still a full story. But as I kept adding the new titles to the mix, because I'm like, oh wow, yeah, okay, this is cool, and you get you get the rest of the story. You get that full play out and everything, how it's connected, because they use a lot of editor notes, and you could follow. Yes, I remember reading that. Okay, so it was a neat way to do it.
Yeah, I'll admit, my only criticism would have been the missing numbering, because I would look at the end of issues, especially, if I had like the 3 of them to read or something like that. When I say 3 of them to read, if I had Justice League Dark to read, Phantom Stranger, and Constantine, just for example, I had to go look at the end of each of those issues to see which one was first, so I could read them in the proper order. That was just me as okay, it's a crossover, I want to do that. I'm like, why wouldn't there be numbering on the front? But I guess you're addressing that right now, because you can get away with reading just the title that you're enjoying. I'm a fan of that. I didn't try it, so I can't speak to it. But I think it's cool that you did.
And normally I would have followed the story and going through. But as I said, I'm playing catch-up on a lot of this stuff, so I just had the stack of the titles, sat down, read the title, and it was funny, after I got through the first run, and I went to the next title, that's when I realized exactly how connectability everything was. And I'm like, let me just finish read through and I'll see how I feel at the end of it. And I enjoyed each individual title. But then when I went through and I read it, how the chronological timeline progression of the story, that was really a neat experience. So this is, I think, if they trade this stuff, or if they absolute this stuff, or they do something with this, I'm wondering how they're going to lay it out. How are they going to tell the story within the trades, or are they just going to do a title trade?
I would do Blight as a trade.
Me too.
I don't know how else you would. I guess it's funny, though. Because of what you said now, I'm a little cautious on that, because I haven't had the experience of reading it that way myself, so I guess I'm not fair speaking that way. I would just say, having read it in the order that it naturally releases in, I really enjoyed following the story that way, so I would collect it that way. But I didn't read it the other way, so I can't really speak to that, so I don't know. I'm glad to hear that you can do that, because I'm a fan with limited budgets. If there's somebody who's saying, hey, I'm a Phantom Stranger junkie, I might want to read the rest of the books, but I can't afford it, to know that you can at least read and get a coherent story out of that, I think that's hard to do. I'm thrilled that they did that. And I agree with you, I liked seeing the editor notes. Because particularly in this Pandora issue, halfway through it lets you know where Constantine 11 ties into, like where the end events of Constantine 11. This is everything you saw before this was mirroring what was happening in Constantine 11. Now we're where Constantine 11 ended off. I liked that. I thought that was a great choice there. And I'm a fan of editor notes like that, and I applaud the choice to handle these books this way, because I've really found this to be enjoyable. And what I also like about it is it reads very differently than what's going on in Justice League of America, or the Forever Evil event books, those miniseries that are going on, like Arkham War and stuff like that. And I quite like the change of pace, so to speak. I think that the Supernatural books should have that feel. They should feel a little out there. And this felt very out there in a good way that felt good for me. You and I are both fans of stuff like Buffy, and I felt like this is in that wheelhouse. It just feels a little quirky and different and with the right kind of edge to it. That I applaud the creative teams and editorial, obviously, involved in all this, because for me, it's working in setting itself apart And I think when you've got a title line that's large, you need to have books set themselves apart or else they're going to get lost very quickly. I'm very protective of these books. I want more people to read them because, a lot of times this type of stuff gets lost. And I'm hoping the Forever Evil banner on it will bring people who maybe haven't read this before that are fans of this type of material and didn't realize that it was here and that this is really how unique and different it was. It's not just another superhero book because with people with magic. These are really supernatural horror books that are set in the DC universe. The tone, the way they carry themselves are different, yet they feel like they belong. And I think that distinction is huge because I just don't feel like it's just it's Batman with magic.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's really critical there. It doesn't feel anything like that at all. The stories match the material, the characters and the material.
Now, when Pandora becomes supercharged, I don't know how better term you could go with that.
Yeah.
The 2-page spread of her just, going golden and just completely blowing stuff up. That was a really cool, just transition period. Because as it's going through and you kind of see why she's like, oh, okay, fine. Trap me, use me. Hey, let me be your test subject. Here we go. And bam, she goes nuclear. I thought those were some really cool pages. And then again, showing the character progression, showing the change, showing where this is going. She's got a power level that we still haven't even seen yet, and she's now starting to tap into it. Same thing, Phantom Stranger. There's another power level he's going to be tapping into, and he's going to be pulling some mojo out. I like seeing this kind of stuff happen, especially when the heroes are facing such overwhelming odds. You need to see the step up. You need to see the reaction. You need to see something that's going to explain how is she going to be able to go back there and do what she has to do. I gotta admit, I kind of cheered at these moments, like, oh, that's cool. Now, I liked her outfit, I liked her look, and I liked the style that they had before her. So when the initial explosion, like, whoa. And if I hadn't been reading this, if I had just seen an image of the new look for Pandora, I probably would have been critical. But seeing it, develop throughout this issue, and then seeing the final usage of it, I'm like, okay, this is neat. This is cool.
I'm in the same place as you because I love her look. So, and I'm still there's a part of me that's like, I hope that the storyline will lead her back to that look. But I like the storytelling reason for it. I like the character enough that I'll get used to the look if this is really the direction they're going in. I need to know more about it. I don't think we're there yet, but this makes sense. You're right. There's a huge difference. Sometimes things are revealed and they can cause a perception and a snark that you don't want. You're right. If I saw that image before reading this book, I probably would have walked in with a different lens and a different viewpoint than I have right now. I like the story. I like the choice. I love her previous costume. So that's where, can they make me love this one? I think with storytelling, absolutely. As with any costume change, you can do that. I'm not there yet, but I can be. Because I like the arc, and you're right, it makes sense with everything that happened. So I'm there. I mean, I'm with you on that. I'm a big fan of. There's something about her being. The costume matches the disconnected nature of the character. She doesn't feel like she's one of us. She feels like she's behind the scenes, kind of hidden and viewing us. And my problem with this costume being so bright is this really makes her bold.
Yeah. And she's no longer sleeking in the shadows with this one.
Exactly. So storytelling-wise, I have no issue with it. And absolutely, there should be some huge evolution to explain why she agreed to do what she did. One part I don't want to go over is when Pandora is like giving speech after speech after speech to Nick Necro and really connecting with everything we know from the Zero issue. Again, excellent choice for readers who are new to this world, saying, hey, this is Nick's relationship with Constantine, and it's being told heavily through Pandora trying to touch him. I thought that was really great because it brings everyone up to speed in a narrative that shows Pandora trying to get under his skin. So it serves dual purposes. When he stabs her in the throat to like shut her up, I'm like, it's so Nick Necro. Again, teaching who the character is, because for a newer reader, they're not going to know who this guy is. You know who this guy is by the end of this. And these are the points where you're like, okay, for as much as he's saying he was the good guy, he's Constantine kicked to 11.
He's the dark version of Constantine.
Which is hard to say.
Kind of funny to say about Constantine.
Felix Faust, I think, is well handled in all this. He's exactly how I remember him before the New 52. They've done a great job of introducing him as kind of this... he just has a creep factor that, like... he's like creepy uncle to, like, a multiple of 12. You know, I mean, just... Yeah. I could never imagine being in a room with Felix Faust where you're like, well, he had a good day today. You know, it's just... you constantly would, like, feel like you need a bath after being near him. I think if I were talking to him via Skype, he's not even in my presence, I'm just talking to him and having a conversation with him, I still would feel a need to be cleansed afterwards, which to me is great writing of the character, because there's very few villains that give me that kind of there's a spider on my arm feel than Felix Faust.
Yes.
And he's always got that. That, to me, is really well done writing, that you can get that factor from him, and art. It's really the whole creative team does a great job with that character of just keeping you feeling like, there's like no redeeming quality to him at all.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. And I always had more of an opinion of him being just this whiny little sniveling guy who messes with powers beyond his comprehension. You know, but this Felix Faust, I'm seeing more of a badass, evil, you know, magic user. I'm seeing more of this guy does have some serious power levels. He is, and he's still, there's still going to be a little bit of a cowardly to him.
Yep.
Because a lot of times that's what you get, the people who are so hungry for power, who don't want to go through the hard work. They want to go the cheap way. There will be a lot of cowardly type of personality in that. But I do see power levels within him. I do see somebody that is a nasty, dangerous person to deal with. And I like that about a villain. I like that about an evil guy.
Don't you think it's both? Like, don't you think your initial assessment and everything you said about his power levels are both there? Because, like, when you said that, like, I saw him just being this sniveling kind of... I would say, yes, your initial assessment's great, with the added twist of this guy is very powerful and all that because of... I think it's all of those things, which I think adds to the creep factor to him. That your initial assessment's 100% spot on.
Exactly.
But there's more to it.
Yeah, I initially thought that's all he had. I didn't see the power. Now, I see the sniveling, I see the cowardly, but I do see the power levels that you have to respect. And I think that's kind of where I was going with throughout this whole Blight stuff, throughout all this stuff that's laying out with him. I'm like, okay, I do see the power levels. I do see he is on par, if maybe even better than the Magic than Constantine. But, you know, it is the sniveling coward who has these massive powers. But it's not just a guy who was given it and doesn't know what he's doing with it. He knows what he's doing with it. But
also an opportunist that's not afraid to let somebody hang himself. He takes the opportunity with Nick Necro to let him kind of take the lead and make these choices. Then he's not afraid to come back later to take credit for, I really do have to handle everything myself, don't I? You with all your clever ideas. And now look. You've provoked a catastrophe. We're seconds from total project collapse and detonation. All of us are going to die. Help me stop it if you can. If you can't, then stay out of my way. And he will have no problem telling the powers that be in the crime syndicate.
Yeah.
Necro insisted. I cautioned him. He went ahead, and I came in and saved the day. In the meantime, there would have been no forward progression if it wasn't for what Necro was doing. So it's an interesting relationship that I think matches everything you said about this character before. He's very complex. And he is that whiny, sniveling guy as well as this power. If he didn't have that whiny, snivelly side to him, think of how much more dangerous he would be. Like, could you imagine, like, a completely confident Felix Faust?
That would be a very dangerous, very, very dangerous person to deal with.
I love this. I really, and even the ending where we've got, three powerful beings sitting there basically because of their lot in life, because of their curse, their respective relationships with the powers that be. They are taken away from this scenario and away from Ground Zero at a time where they thought they would have an opportunity to affect it. That is a critical, because this would affect their relationship with the rest of the team as well. Where were you? How did you leave us? Phantom Stranger has always had a history of disappearing in the middle of battles. Going back to the old universe I'm talking about, he was a guy that would pop in and out, and Heroes became very used to the idea that you can't rely on him to be there when you need him because of that nature. I like this telling of it because it doesn't take away any of that, but it gives us, the reader, the greater understanding of the tragedy of how that works. They don't always have control over that. It's because of their curse they're forced to do that.
To wander the earth, yeah.
I like that. I really like that avenue with them. There's times where maybe if they want to end it all with those that they call comrades or care about, they don't have the option.
And even earlier in the issue where when they tried to blindfold Pandora, but part of her curse is she is cursed to bear witness to the evil she unleashed. So she can't be blindfolded. So then that natural curse of hers still stripped it away. I thought that, and then with the fact that they're cursed to wander the earth, those were two things that they brought in from these characters, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. It was just really I think just a fantastic choice, and something that I really loved about the book. If you haven't tried any of the books of the Supernatural line, I can't encourage you enough to give these a shot. This Blight storyline is a great opportunity to do it because it really gives you a nice overview of the universe at large, and who all the characters are. Even though Swamp Thing doesn't tie into it, as far as a title, Swamp Thing's appearance in this and his usage in this is really, I think, indicative of who the character is in his own book. So if you really want a nice overview of the Dark Line and what books you might want to follow spinning out of this Forever Evil Blight, if you're a fan of the main event, is a great way, I think, to get your feet wet in the universe. I don't know if you agree with me on that. I just think it's a great way to get to know these characters.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is jumping on right at this point in time. You may be a little bit lost or confused, but if you go back a couple issues, check out, look into some of the trades, this is a good story arc that gives a great look at the Magic Universe, and this right here is laying the groundwork for some future stuff in the Magic Universe, just because everybody is going to be affected by this Forever Evil, and I'm thinking Magic especially, there's going to be some changes happening.
And let me clarify, because you're making a good point there. I meant starting with Blight, not the current issues of Blight. I would go right to the beginning of Forever Evil Blight, because it's the beginning of this arc for all of those characters involved. So it would be a good way to get your feet wet. So you're right. You have to go back a couple issues. You have to go back to I would basically say if it's got a Forever Evil banner on it, grab those issues of this book if you want to get your feet wet. These books, if you want to get your feet wet in them. And kind of explore it that way. You know what I like, though? You really could grab those issues of one of the titles if you really wanted to, and do what you did. And then if you like it, grab the other issues. So you could really grab just 2 or 3 issues of a book and just say, I'm going to grab the initial ones with the Forever Evil banner of this title. See if it's for me, because you said you can read them that way. So if you can, that's a great way to grab that particular arc. Those issues will have the other characters in them. And it'll give you an idea if it's for you or not at a more of a budget jump on, if that makes sense. Do you think? Do you think it'll work that way?
I think Justice League Dark. Mm-hmm. If you start at the beginning of the Forever Evil stuff, you'll get a solid, and then because within there are the editor notes as to what happened here, where this went to, what happened here. You can then see, okay, yeah, this is where I can get a Constantine, I can get this, but I think if you just follow Justice League Dark, you should get a nice feel. Well, definitely get a nice feel of the Magic Universe and see these characters, and you do get a comfort with it, and from there you can decide who's for you, who's not.
Yeah, I like that.
Our next title will be Justice League of America, number 12. The writer is Matt Kint, with pencils by Eddie Barrows, Tom Derenick, and R.B. Silva. The inks by, Eber Fieri, Ferreiar, Ellen...
R.A.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Sorry.
I'm reading it and I'm not reading correctly. Again, I'm doing something different with just throwing this out there to people. I am trying some digital stuff when we record it because, and on one hand, it's easier for me. But on the other hand, because I'm not using it on the tablet, I'm using it on my computer. I can't zoom in. So my eyes don't work sometimes. But let's go with Eber Fiera with Ellen Martinez and Silva on inks, Hi-Fi colors, Rob Lay on letterers with Barrow Fiera and Gade ELT REB, which I've tried to pronounce his name multiple times, and I have butchered it, so this time I'm just going to spell it. On the covers, of course, the steampunk variant cover is by Matteo Scalier, with Ricky Purin as associate editor, Eddie Braganza as editor. Superman, of course, was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, with the special arrangements by the Jerry Siegel family.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt Kint right now for a variety of reasons, including the fact that he's responsible for relaunching Rye over at Valiant, which was Rye and the Future Force was one of my favorite titles over at Valiant back in the old days. So I'm glad to see that he's going to be on that. I've really enjoyed his Justice League of America run right now. Anytime you got a book where Jeff Johns is writing it and somebody else is then taking over, that's a really hard thing to do. And I thought he's been doing a real bang-up job on this book because it felt like every bit of the flagship title it was when Jeff Johns was originally writing it. Big events happen in this one. Do you mind if we just skip to the Martian Manhunter?
Yeah, let's start there.
Because I don't know how and there's an event that's coming up later with Martian Manhunter. There's no way I want to do that through this entire discussion. Is he really dead, or do you think the fact that part of him's in Stargirl is not a throwaway?
I think part of him is in Stargirl is not a throwaway. Okay. Now, he flat out says, as I draw my last breath, I realize we are going to win. Those are his final moments, which in the book, and he completely is he quote unquote dead, or is he mostly dead? If you're mostly dead, you're partially alive. So I'm thinking we got a mostly dead situation here. We pull the Miracle Max, the Miracle Pill. He'll be fine. Or in this case, it'll be when Stargirl and him reunite and she's able to put that last essence of him that's in her back into his body. I'm seeing something like that play out.
And he's on the cover of that new Justice League series.
Right.
So, that...
He can't be dead.
Yeah.
He's mostly dead, not completely dead. And that's where I'm holding on to. But I've loved how they played this off, that he is weaker and he's taking massive punches. And he's getting a lot of damage done and he's lying there and he appears to be dead. He even says, I'm dead. So you get this great death moment. Again, he seems to be one of the Justice Leaguers who dies a lot. We had him die in the last big crossover event. We have him dying here. I'm like, man, come on. Let's keep the Martian around. He's a cool guy.
It fits this story, though, and what's going on with him, how his powers have been diminished. And here's the problem. In this, because of where they've come from, it's hard to tell what's reality and what's not with these two. And I quite like that about this storyline. These are two that have escaped the trap, which is incredibly interesting about them because there's this trap that was set of everyone being trapped within Firestorm. These are the two that have somehow managed to be able to operate in the real world as we know it. And they're tasked with the impossible task of stopping Firestorm from going nuclear, from blowing everything up. That would basically destroy huge areas of Los Angeles and our heroes as we know it. Because if they're trapped in there, they're all done for, right?
Well, if they're trapped in there when he goes Nova, that's it. It's over. Game over for them because if you're sitting there inside, they can't. Well, I wouldn't imagine it'd be impossible for them to survive, but you never know. I'm thinking we're going to get that last-minute rescue.
Wouldn't it be a death of their consciousness, though? Because I think that's really the part where it's not a matter of, could Superman survive that kind of a blast? Yes, but this isn't not the physical form. It's they're all trapped inside that matrix of what happens when Firestorm merges. So if they go Nova and they're all destroyed, their consciousness, their being would be destroyed in a way that is very different than a physical attack. It's an atomic level attack. That's just crazy nuts.
It goes beyond that, and it'll be game over for all of them.
I want to know who sat down and came up with this idea.
Yeah.
It says, wow, would be, because this really does sound like a geeky comic show. What would happen if everybody merged with Firestorm?
Well, and also, you're thinking, what kind of prison could you make that Superman, Wonder Woman, a Green Lantern, Flash, all these super powerful beings couldn't escape from? What kind of prison could you do that? Well, right here's the answer. It is physically holding them, but it's more of the mental. It's that quantum energy type whatnot field that is out there in life. That's what's containing them. That's what's holding them in.
Why is Stargirl the last survivor on Earth? She's the only one that wasn't merged with Firestorm. There's literally nobody left. I think it was a great storyline. I like it for her because I thought it's just a really terrific spotlight of her as a character. I've always loved the character since her introduction. I think one of the great things in the New 52 with her is they haven't lost, even though there's elements like where she got, the staff from and things like that. She didn't get it from Jack Knight in this case. There is a history there that's being brought in with her. Her strengths, her vulnerabilities, her age, everything about her that I know from JSA is here at the core. And I think she's just a character who just has a ton of worth and potential. I really hope because we know the titles and teams are changing after this, she needs a place on one of those teams. I'm adamant about her. One of my favorite characters on JLA. And she needs to wind up somewhere. And I honestly would argue, out of this book in particular, she's the one I most want to see wind up on a team. I don't know if you feel the same way. I think maybe it's this spotlight with her and Martian Manhunter. Maybe has just got me so knowing what she is in the New 52, even more than John. I really want to see her wind up somewhere. And that may be just me. Sometimes we all latch on to different characters. I really have loved her character development in this, from being the one that they held behind the scenes and kept from risk, where she was kind of this public eye for the JLA, to her showing, wait a minute, I belong here. I signed up because I want to be this person. Because at the core, it's who I know I am. And she showcases that in this story. And it means more because of the fact that we know she was kept on the sidelines because of her age and who she is.
Oh, yeah, I definitely get your feel and your vibe towards her. Now, I got to admit, I'm not the level of passion you have for her. Mm-hmm. I don't have that. And I think part of it is because I don't have such a rich history with the character. But
makes sense.
What?
No, makes sense.
Yeah.
I was just more nodding my head and agreeing with you.
Okay. But one of the things I really enjoyed throughout this Justice League of America run is the fact that we are seeing the growth of the character and the growth of the hero. And I agree with you. I do want to see her on a team just because she goes from being the pretty blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl in red, white, and blue, and they threw her out there just for an appearance, just for an image. Look at this. This is our star girl, and she goes from that to being this actual hero who's fighting, who's making the tough calls. And this issue showing the past, again, some more back information on her was a really cool thing for me, because when she's first sitting there saying, hey, I got to get home, I got to check on my parents, I got to check on my family, I was like, it's noble, but you got to prioritize sometimes. We see why she is so obsessed about her family. We see why she's willing to basically just run away from everything and go make sure her folks are okay, looking on her family, see how they're doing. And I like the fact that we do get this glimpse of her. And it's stuff like that makes me say, yes, I want to see her on a team. Yes, I want to see more of Stargirl in the DC universe.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's one of the things that makes this character interesting. You know what? It's one of the great things about a team book is, though, you can have a different vibe based on experience as far as which characters that you're latching onto. So your point's well met, as far as I don't have the history with Stargirl that you do, so maybe I'm not getting the passion you are. I'm seeing why you want her on a team, and I want her on a team too, but it's not the same level, and I get that. that's the great thing about a team book is you might be feeling that way about somebody else that was on this team to the level that I was. And I think you need that in a team book different so you can have a different attach rate. You know, there should be different characters that different people attach to on the book. Her history in this has been great because with John and with her, we're seeing a development of their backstory, what is driving them, what their fears are. You know, with her and her family, this constant quest to go and help her family, we see what it's driven by. It's driven by the fact that she did not have an opportunity to save her brother. And that's something that haunts her. And, you know, this need to be there, to be a part of that, and to make that save is something for her that is crushing. And it would be for anybody. In his case, you know, it goes to, he's got his family, his past that is constantly haunting him. There's also stories from Martian lore that are making him make the stand that he is right now. And also making him view her as somebody she can relate to. Like, I see the two of them after this. It almost would be not almost. It definitely would be a huge mistake not to have these two on the same team at the end of this. Because the relationship that's been developed here, the respect level he has for her, he's looking at her as a hero from Martian lore. I mean, in that sequence where they show that one Martian who stood up and he went up against this beast that was terrorizing everybody and sacrificed himself, pinning himself and this beast in this, you know, inescapable solution to a problem. He sees her doing this in that moment with Despero, who he couldn't defeat because he was too weak to. And he sees her as being that hero who can win in that. Seeing her from his perspective, you have to have these two on the same team. Because I have a funny feeling, I always liked her with Atom Smasher because of similar relationship with them, where you saw the two of them have this bond. They were different, but yet there was something that connected them and made them the way for other people to understand the relationship. I see this being the new buddy cop team on whatever Justice League team they would wind up on. I don't remember if Stargirl was on the same cover that he was on. If they aren't on the same team together, that's a big mistake after this issue. I really think they need to look at this issue and go, wait a minute, maybe we need to shuffle things just slightly to make sure these two wind up there so we build off of this. Because I think this relationship needs to be built off of.
Completely agree with you, 100%. This is, you know, when you're talking about the next Justice League titles, these two are two I want on the same team together. And he's on the United, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to be honest, that would fit. I would say that she would fit being on that title, plus also this connection these two have, because we don't really know what the long-term effect is going to be between their linkage. There may even be beyond the Forever Evil storyline that there may be a link and a connection between the two of them.
Right. So that's with Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire's writing that one. She's on the cover.
Oh, okay, cool.
I just had to go look. It's the cover has on it Adam Strange, Martian Manhunter, Animal Man, looks like Green Arrow, which makes sense because he's writing the main Green Arrow book, Supergirl, and Stargirl. Yeah, that would have been a huge mistake to not have them still together after this. And actually, I'm encouraged by Jeff Lemire writing them because I think he's good at doing this type of relationship. There's the one moment where she bursts out of the water. I just want to comment on the art piece. They did a close-up of her face. Where's everyone, John? I just thought that was absolutely breathtaking. There's an emotion that's delivered in that where I was just kind of like, whoa. It was like, I don't know, just for me, it was very captivating to see her reaction. It felt very real. And go ahead.
And just it was not only just the visual, but the story and how it was leading to it. I won't give up, and she's bursting through the water. And again, that was a really cool hero moment, and that was a connectability moment because she's sitting there saying, "Hey, you're showing me these images. You're trying to get me to give up and quit, but what you're doing is motivating me. You're saying this is why I can't quit. This is why I won't give up." And those are those true hero moments where you got to step up, you got to knuckle up. It'd be easier to just lay down and die and accept death. She is not doing that. She's not going to let him get, take her down and just break her spirit. And I think that's a hero moment. Those are the dun da da moments I talk about and that I love. Yeah, I see it. You get that moment with her, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
I really can't wait to see the end of this story, to see where this goes and what ends up happening, because the fight with Despero with her, I think because of the fact that she's, smaller, she's not, you don't think of her as the muscle-bound hero. She doesn't have, this major invulnerability or ability to phase like a Kitty Pryde does, for example, on the X-Men. But the comparison's really strong because I always felt like Kitty Pryde, especially in her early years, was like this. Very vulnerable. But yet you somehow admired her all the more because she continues pressing on. She has a morality to her that pushes her to, even against the worst villains, to stand up in their face and stay true to who she is. Stargirl does this in these moments. So I guess the comparison's really strong. I really loved the fight with her and Despero, especially framed by John's narrative. To see the art style and to see really just how much stronger Despero looked than her was something that really struck me.
Yeah, and it's, again, I keep mentioning knuckling up and just pushing through, and I don't want to be repetitive, but you keep seeing that throughout this issue. Yeah. Those are the kind of stuff that I connect to the heroes. Those are the kind of stuff I want to see. And I love the fact that she is bloody mess. She's bleeding and she's banged up. There are definite battle scars, and she's still fighting through that. And she's got to be hurting. It's got to be difficult. And she's racing towards this, possible suicidal event. She's got, Firestorm, about to detonate, and she's running to it. I always say how, like with firemen and police officers, they run to scenes where everybody else is running away from. That, to me, is a definition of a hero. She's running, she's flying top speed to something that any logical or intelligent person, would say, you know what, I think I'm going to go the opposite way of this and see if I can get far enough away from the blast. She's saying, nope, I'm going head into the lion's den. And that always is going to be a hero moment. And I love seeing that. But, you talk about with John's narrative and then just the look on her face. There is the hero determination, but there is a little bit of that teenager, scared, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? So it's that human, that true, honest reaction that you're getting on these multiple panels. So you get great dialogue, great story, but this artwork really pulls you in going, dang, that's some cool stuff, especially when they do the zoom in on the close-up on her eyes. And you can just see you're just seeing the mask part, but you're seeing that determination, the glistening of the reflection. She's like, I'm going there, I'm going in.
The cover I thought was really great with the game of chess, where the crime syndicate pieces were the only ones standing, and it's a battle between John and Despero, really clearly showing that Despero had what looked like the upper hand in the whole scenario, with her being the lone hero standing there against all of this. I just thought it was really great. It was really a terrific cover. It really struck me at how poignant the cover was with the contents of the issue, which is hard to do. And I just thought it was just a really well done cover.
Now, one of the things that I've enjoyed about the Forever Evil stories, and especially what we're getting here, I don't know how she's going to win. I don't know what she can do and how she can do it and how she can possibly stop, the exploding firestorm. That's the thing that, whenever I'm reading a title, I can't figure out how they're going to do it. That's what gets me excited. That's what gets me going, oh yeah, I gotta wait. Come on, what's next? Yeah,
that's the stuff that gets me too. It's nice when you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. We just know in John's case, there's a confidence in him that she is going to be able to win. In some ways, I prefer that. Not always, but in this particular storyline, I just think it really works. I can't wait for the conclusion, because that's next issue is a conclusion. And it's funny how this event has felt epic because of its length, just the careful choices of crossovers that have happened in this. I've really liked the way that this is all laid out. I like that I could read this Justice League of America arc independent of where I'm at in Forever Evil, the miniseries proper, And I've got a really contained storyline that reflects what's going on in Forever Evil. That really is an emotional piece that gets me to know the characters a lot more. There's something to that. Justice League Dark, if we talk about the one we were just talking about before, its focus on not only the heroes but the villains has really given me a greater sense of some of the magic villains in this universe. And I think there's a point to that as well. There's just a lot of depth to this big event. And I think it was just really well crafted that no matter what you're reading, I think you're getting a lot of value out of it. And that's ultimately, when do crossovers work? When do events work? When there's a purpose to them. That's why we get excited when they come around. Where we get eventitis, and I think it's the only reason we really get eventitis. First of all, well, there's two reasons. The wallet. Let's go off of that one. But throw that off to the side because nowadays more and more events are structured like this where you can really make choices with your wallet and how you attack this event. They may not always be the preferable choices, but I look at previews. I would love to be reading all of previews. There is a time and cost decision that goes into every choice that we make as comic fans all the time. So take that out of it. To me, an event only gets eventitis when it's just thrown together for no reason. It's an event for the sake of having an event. This was an event with a purpose, with a reason that will have pivotal, major events to this universe. There's no way that things won't change after this. I like that. I'm excited for what's going to come after this. It makes sense that this world can't stay the same after this, nor should it. And I want that. I want to see where we're going to go from now. It's time for a shakeup. Get me excited. Get me talking. Show me some things that I haven't seen. And I want to see where that's going to go. You need to do that periodically in a universe, otherwise it gets stagnant. And this certainly is not going to lead to anything stagnant.
No, it's who's dead, who's survived, who's coming back, and where does everybody stand? Because again, this is one of those. It's a universally major impact, and as I'm talking, I'm listening, I'm looking at those final panels of John, and it's just I keep saying no, he can't be dead, he can't be dead, but it's is he? What's going to happen? How does he survive? And it's those type of questions that I want the next issue now. I want the next issue of Forever Evil. I want all these titles now. I want to jump on them and read them and see what's going to happen. Where does this play out next?
Yeah, and that's a sign of a good event to me. That's far more important to me than anything else. Our next chat is going to be about Harley Quinn issue number 3, Love Stinks. Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti on writing, Chad Hardin on art, Alex Sinclair colors, John J. Hill letters, Amanda Conner and Paul Mounts on the cover, Tommy Lee Edwards variant cover, Katie Kubert editor, Mike Martz group editor, Harley Quinn created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Wow, do I really love this book. And actually, before we go any further, speaking of Jimmy Palmiotti, there is a Kickstarter that's going on right now that's already reached its goal called Denver. It's another one of they've done 3 of them now, I believe. I know this would be the 3rd one for me. I don't know if there was one before it, of the graphic novels that they've been doing, original graphic novels through Kickstarter that are independent and group funded. And if you're a big fan of the work of Gray and Palmiotti and have just been enjoying following them, I can't encourage you enough to check out Denver on Kickstarter. It's a very cool. I'm excited for it. I did the tier where you get the digital versions of the previous ones, and you get the issue and digital version of the new one, I believe. And I've already got the other 2 books, but I wanted, I'm like, well, if I get the digital version and do this kind of really cool package, I'm into it. So it was neat. But it's great to see them continuing to use Kickstarter as a platform to launch independent material. And if you haven't checked out Kickstarter, I highly encourage you to do so. So I just felt like with Jimmy Palmiotti being on writing on this one, we should shout out Denver really quick just because I think it's super cool. But anyway, back to Harley Quinn. Boy, 3 issues in, 4, because there was a 0 issue. What a fun book.
Dude, man, I'm loving this title. I am so loving Harley Quinn. This has been just, you talk about the Zero issue where they completely tear down the fourth wall and you have fun with it. Right from there, then starts off 1, 2, 3. Each one has Harley's variations and Harley, it's that Harley touch to it. There's definite, crazy hardcore. She's a killing machine. She's funny. She's got all these wonderful just quirks to her that just keeps you going, but it's never such to the point where it's over the top that you're like, oh, come on, enough of the gag. Let's move on to the story. It's a great blending of the gag and the story and just that little surprise. That little treat that you're going to get in every Harley issue where they take a little different spin. She looks at things a little bit differently. I absolutely love this title.
I love that her dead beaver dude is like talking to her constantly throughout. That to me is like, she has conversations with that thing, whether there's people in the room or not. It's the greatest thing in the world. But did you see the bathtub scene where she's like sitting there watching television, which is questionable in and of itself, and all like the stuff that she's got in there? Do you see what's behind the bathtub?
No, I missed it.
Toasters.
Oh, okay.
She's got toasters behind the bathtub. Like the danger of the TV falling in with this like board over your top isn't enough. You got toasters there just in case you want to go a little crazy. It's very Harley. There's a charm to this story. I would not want all of my books like this. This book like this so totally works on every possible level of wackiness. Because it has serious tones that are mixed in with the deepest insanity. It must be like great to like sit down and have a conversation about your next Harley issue for them as they're doing this, because you're crafting this like really interesting story about like these berries that she gets from Poison Ivy, and not knowing that the whole point of the berries was for her to maybe Poison Ivy's idea of a present, because I didn't think it was meant, Poison Ivy really likes her. So she would look at this as having everyone be able to love her would maybe in some ways be able to help her understand why Poison Ivy likes being able to do things with her kiss. But it leads to this whole crazy adventure where, because everybody's loving her, she's pulled into this whole sequence where she's got to keep people away from her because they love her too much. What a great what a great story based on Poison Ivy being a guest in the last issue. I thought it was great.
Well, it's like the movie Love Potion number 9.
Uh-huh.
Where, if you speak anything, your voice, attracts anybody from the opposite sex, and you get that one scene where the female takes full concentrate. And so anything she says, everyone around her is going absolutely crazy, hunting her down and chasing her, and just I so totally got that same vibe from this, and it works wonderfully because Harley's an absolute nut job, and it fits everything. Ivy coming through with her dealing with this, with her having all these people run down and chase after her. I was like, yes, this is cool.
I liked when she was getting ready, and she put on that outfit. And she makes the comment, "Look out, world, here I come." I'll never understand why Superman wears the same outfit every day. The idea that, especially because they explored this in Power Girl, when the Power Girl run was going on. Amanda Conner was doing the artwork on there. Just different variations on her costume, slight tweaks and things like that. Seeing this happen with Harley makes sense, too. On a guy end, I can say to myself, having a uniform like that and being able to just say, as a hero, I don't need to worry about which uniform I'm going to wear today. I'm just going to grab my dun dun dun. And if I change my outfit, I'm making a permanent change to it, or at least, an intended permanent change to it, because it's just easy to throw on my suit and go. That's a guy thing. This twist, not all guys. There's certain guys that would like to be able to bling it up and change it up every so often. But I would say a majority of guys, we fall into that stereotype. This being, though, a girl who's saying, okay, and part of this is our society. Women and fashion like this tend to go together. And being able to say, wow, I can wear this outfit and that outfit. I like that being explored every so often. And I'm sure on the flip side, there's women who like being able to just have a uniform that I can throw on and not having to deal with that nonsense works for me, too. It's interesting to explore, though, because those are very much a society perception. And I like that they threw that in there because I think it is very much indicative of how we view things as a society.
Yeah, and it's funny with the her stuffed beaver that every so often I kind of wonder, is he still alive?
In her head, he is, and I mean he's alive in a way that no beaver's ever been alive before. And
I'm waiting for the day. I'm waiting for the day that he's going to talk and somebody else is going to hear the beaver. I'm waiting for that moment that somebody else actually can hear and understand him. Maybe it'll be just a microphone planted or some type of bad guy swaps out for her beaver with a robotic one or something. I know somewhere down the line he's going to be talking and someone other than Harley will hear him.
It'll be somebody crazy.
Well, that too. Someone crazy may hear him as well.
And honestly, I think the beaver's going to talk to before he talks to anybody else? Us.
No.
Because that wall's already been broken on this series. I do. I think the odds are we're going to get talking to him first.
Well, see, again, that'd be cool. I don't want it on everything, but there's certain titles. Tearing down the fourth wall works. With the Doom Patrol, it worked well for them. With Ambush Bug, it works wonderful with him.
Deadpool.
Harley, it fits because of the craziness of her.
I know, as an X-fan, did you read any Deadpool?
I never really read Deadpool.
Yeah, Deadpool does that, and it works really well. You've got to be judicious with it. You're right. The wink and the nod to the audience works at certain times. Other times it does not. Mm-hmm. And in this case, with this kind of crazy, it just, for some reason, feels right at home. And it would make sense that because she's crazy, she's seeing something that the rest of the universe would not see. And that's why it works. Because you're like, she shouldn't be talking to us. And it brings us into the crazy. I love that. I really think that part of it works. But it's not overdone. That's the catch. Her talking to the beaver more often is much more, I think, relevant to showcasing her crazy than her talking to us all the time would be.
Yeah, you have to have that nice blend to it, and that's something this title is doing really well with. It is a crazy, it is kind of an over top crazy just because of how Harley looks at life and how she deals with it, but it's not a true over the top crazy that it takes away from the story. We have upper serious levels of complete nutjobby with her, but it's not anything that takes away from saying, oh, this is just terrible. Yeah, it doesn't turn you away. It makes you laugh, makes you go okay, and then it continues on within the realms of normalcy. I
like when the corrections truck flips over and the prisoners escape. They're already society deviants, so when they get this love potion that completely captivates them, they lose, if they had any sense of, I want to watch what I say because I'm out in public or I'm actually in front of the female, it's gone when you're so totally in love that you just want to let go and be you, and so totally good. The stuff they were saying was just like making me laugh like crazy. I want to shear you. Like who really
wants to make
a
sandwich out of you?
Like who wants to hear that kind of stuff? I mean, like I don't pretend to have like this intense amount of great game, but I know I've got better game than that. Like, I'm really clear that, like, at my worst, my game is better than any of that.
Yes. And again, funny moments of them running after her, yum, I'm mine, and just that blind look. But again, level of evil, level of killing, people, we got a pretty good body count in this issue alone. Every Harley Quinn issue has this type of body count, has this type of level of violence, but it also has these fun-natured, goofy stuff that we're laughing about. It's absolutely wonderful with this blend they're maintaining.
Wait, I want to show you my cellular. The guy in the store, when she goes in there and she's looking for things in aisle 14, and she goes, fine, you can love me as long as you stop those guys that are coming after me. And he's out there with weapons going after them. I mean, it was just such a great bit. The highlight of the issue for me, when she starts up with that weed whacker. All right, you have a choice. You can all turn around and walk out of here, or we can do this the hard way. Ah, who am I kidding? No one's walking out of here alive. Come and get me, boys. I heard the Harley voice. It was just terrific. Then it led to, her pulling out all kinds of, she's got a welder's mask on, just all kinds of crazy stuff going on, the nail gun. Such a great interchange of wacky violence that's cartoony and over the top in a way that fits a Harley book. I was so glad, especially with the fact that we're not having a Suicide Squad after this event right now. This character needed to wind up somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to see her in this book because she feels very much like the Harley we've been reading in Suicide Squad. So there's no disconnect there at all. And I like that. I like that I don't feel like, wow, there's this jarring change to the character. I don't know who she is anymore. We've seen her in Batman crossovers. We've seen her in Suicide Squad. This is this same girl. Yet there's also an evolution that I think puts her even closer to classic Harley. That works as well, if I'm making any sense at all there. I think it's almost a complete telling of her story now. Like, she's where I feel she should be in this series. And there's something to that. Yeah.
And it's funny with these sequences, with her, fighting off all these guys. There's actually one scene that it slipped by me what exactly she did. The redheaded Mohawk dude, she's punching him, hit him, and she goes, rides over. I actually thought she was just, when I first read this, I thought she just hit him on the head. But second look, no, she took the screwdriver and drove the screwdriver into his brain. And it was something that, again, it's the body count, it's the killing, it's the seriousness. But as it's going on, we're getting these funny little dialogues from her. This is absolutely wonderful.
I love that it's not till the kiss with the police officer after all that she realizes, wait a minute, it's the berries. And it's funny, in the midst of all that killing, we're reminded totally, this is actually a villain. This is not a hero. With everything she's doing, I'm not looking at her as a hero all of a sudden. But yet there's that sweet part of her, that friend of hers that we've seen since the beginning of this, who asks for the flowers back. When she's been down on her luck with love and all that kind of stuff, she still recognizes that, wait, if I give him one of these berries, maybe this... Except, what the horrible thing to do to him? She thinks she's helping him out, probably the way that Poison Ivy thought that she was helping Harley out. In the end, though, it actually puts him in the same horrid situation that she was in. And I love the way the story wound up with that. You know what I love about this book in particular? It's fun.
Yeah.
And it's, I need a fun book. I need a book that just feels fun. It's a very fun ride from start to finish. And that's been a consistency throughout the first 4 issues of this book, has been just, there's a fun factor to it. It makes me smile. I don't feel like it's in any way, shape, or form outside of the DC universe. It's a part of what's going on. It's the same character that I've been reading in Suicide Squad. I get it. And I could see this book, having issues that take on much more serious tones all the way through. But I really am endeared to the fact that it's just a fun ride. And that these creators understand that, it's okay to put out a book that's insanely over the top when you've got the character that matches that theme. And it makes me smile. It's just really, right from the get-go, this has jumped very quickly up my stack to just because of the enjoyment I get out of this. I've reread every single issue of this series, not for any purpose relating to this podcast, just because they're fun. It's just and I've even found myself just going to certain sequences and browsing through them just because I wanted to chuckle again. That's something that I think is increasingly becoming a lost art across media. The ability just to have a good time. And I applaud the creative team on this book for just having fun, because it's infectious. And if you're not reading this series, do yourself a favor, because this can't be more different than anything else out there right now. There's nothing like this.
And the fact that she's right now, there's somebody put a multi-million-dollar contract on her. Yeah. So periodically we have these assassins trying to come after her. And she even makes the joke early in issue when she's talking to Big Tony about, I lost track. I stopped keeping track after, a while. And, she's not worried about someone trying to kill her. She's not worried about someone put this contract on her. She's just Harley. She's just doing her thing. And as it goes on, when the assassin comes after her, she'll take care of the assassin. And I love just that style to her. And I'm eagerly anticipating the final conflict, the conflict between her and this person who put the contract on her. See why he did this, where it came from. There's so many different things that can fly through your head, but given the way this title is, any idea I come up with, it's probably not going to be that. It's probably going to be something completely out of left field that we won't see coming. And that's the swerves and the surprises is the big thing I am deeply enjoying on this book.
And here's a great part. 4 issues in, I don't need to know who that person is yet.
No.
They could tell me next issue, or it could be another 5 issues down the road. It doesn't matter to me right now. I'm really digging the ride. Like, I think the storyline is a great framework to just build off of, like, why crazy nonsense is happening all around her. Why she would call in friends and, like, really, try to come up with a solution to this whole problem. But at the same time, she's Harley. I like that there's a supporting cast in this book. I like the place that she is owning now. And, just how it fits her whole sense of macabre. I mean, it's crazy, crazy nonsense stuff. And I love it. It's really well crafted. Kudos to the team. I can't wait for the next issue.
And the fact that she now has a regular a normal job.
Yeah.
She's going to be the psychiatrist at the nursing home. How much stuff can they do with that? Just the potential of she's a psychiatrist at a nursing home.
Yeah, that can't go well.
Oh no, it's going to go horrible for her, and it's going to be our enjoyment.
Well, and here's the thing: are we going to see the duality of Harley and Harleen?
I don't know. Because part of me thinks Harleen's been in charge this whole time, but she's just having fun as Harley.
Sure.
Because you think about when she did the interviewing and all that, she, blonded herself up and, put some color to her face. And, she went less Harlequin pale. There was Harleen there, but there is always that question of which one's in charge, which one can actually act. And it's, that's the thing I like about Harley, because we never truly know who's in charge, who's in, behind the driver's seat, because each one can act like the other.
Yeah. I just really, really a fun book. I wanted to talk about this so bad because it's just really a terrific title, and it makes me smile. Which there's something to be said about that when you have a title that's not afraid to do that. Our next discussion is going to be of the one-shot Batman, the Joker's Daughter, Golgotham. It's Marguerite Bennett is the writer, Megan Hetrick is the artist, Michelle Madsen on colors. It's SAIDATEMOFONTE on letters. Apologies, I don't want to butcher that. Georges Giannetti, and apologies for any of that. And Michelle Madsen on the cover. Katie Kubert, editor. Mike Martz, group editor. Batman created by Bob Kane. In particular, the cover artist I also want to shout out because very big fan of the work on Buffy. And it was really cool to see this artist have an opportunity to do Joker's Daughter, because what a wicked-looking cover.
Oh, God, yeah.
I wanted to talk about this one because it's just a one-shot that's coming out of the blue of this character that's really been well developed and crafted, of having this bizarre, like, cult-like love for the Joker, to the point where she's completely willing to give up any semblance of her identity prior to turn herself into this underground leader character that basically is calling herself Joker's daughter and taking on that role. I would love to see how the Joker would actually feel about her. Like, at some point in time, we've got to see that relationship and what that would be like. Is she definitely being groomed to be the next Harley?
She's not going to be the next Harley.
No, I don't mean that she's going to be called Harley. I mean, in the sense,
I get what you're saying.
Is she going to be a sidekick of his, or is she going to be remain her own thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I 100% do not think she's going to be a Joker sidekick. That's what I've said by she's not going to be another Harley.
Okay,
she's going to be her own entity, and I don't think the Joker would like her too much, because I think it would be one of those weird, goofy things of the Joker that. He's the only Joker, and he wouldn't want to share just the the styling, share the title, share the thing with somebody else. I think it's something that, a personal connection on the Joker's level. Joker would see her as a fake and a fraud, and it would probably, I would say, anger him what she's doing.
Now, in the beginning, am I understanding right that she's sucking on and eating part of his face? Is that what's happening there?
That's what it looks like to me, but then she still has some left. So, does she
spit it back out again?
Spit it back out, or is the face she puts on, is that somebody else's face she cut off? Is there something else going on here, or did she chew off the extra parts to make it fit her face?
Because I was wondering, is that like a crazy gobstopper? I don't know. I don't know what she's doing. And honestly, she would probably be. I don't know what gob is, so I'd probably ask her. Hey, what is gob? Because you're clearly trying to take care of it with what you're doing. I don't know. I love that the cat's still there. The one from this is really, the creative team did a great job of reflecting on where this character's been in the Catwoman storyline, where we've seen this character. Her first appearance was during that Villains Month, and then we saw her bleed into this Catwoman storyline, which I really greatly. And did you like that storyline?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was cool stuff.
Yeah, that was a storyline that I thought started kicking up Catwoman. As far as a must-read title for me, I thought that was a really good storyline. And then spinning her into a one-shot like this, I thought was really a good idea because it reflects where she's been in the Catwoman storyline, but really gives us a nice focus on her own. Speaking of, she's a very different kind of crazy than Harley.
Yeah, and on one hand, part of me is like, I want to say she's a fake crazy. Now, before you, let me explain.
No. I think you're right. Go ahead.
It's not like how the Joker's crazy. Harley is crazy. She is just. It's like the crazy is the excuse. She says, "I'm crazy. That's why I do this." It's like when somebody throws out, I have a temper because I'm Irish. No, you have a temper because you have a temper. Where your family came from in the world does not matter. That doesn't affect won't affect your temper, won't affect your personality. You are the one that affects your personality. It's the same thing with her and the crazy. She does the crazy stuff because she says, "Oh, I'm crazy. That's why I'm doing this." No, you're choosing to do this because you look at life a little bit different. It's not the true reason isn't, why did you do this?
Or, building on that, is she one of those people that didn't ever... People, I think you hit a certain point in time in your life where you start to discover who you are. And your own personality, your own sense of who you are, how you fit into the world, what you bring to the table. Other people, there are people you got to feel bad for that you don't break out of this, will latch so much onto somebody else's dynamic personality that they try to force themselves to become that person or become deeply connected to that person because they can never hit that sense of independence that allows them to be something more. To be their own thing, their own sense of being, their own sense of being involved. I think that is a form of crazy in this case, where you would latch onto a cult leader, because that's really what this is going on here. But there's a fake part of it because she's drawing from somebody else's crazy, the Joker's, and trying so hard to be a part of that she's a pretender to the throne. But she's so aggressive about it that in many ways she goes about it to a level and with a technique that the Joker would never use. It's very strange. That's the only way to put it. I think it's hard to pin down whether or not she's crazy or not, because I think there is a certain amount of crazy there, but it does fall into the category that you're talking about. And I get what you're saying. I don't know that it's as simple as being able to label her A or B, though. She's like Q. Yes.
She's definitely out there in left field. And when I say, I'm not saying she's not crazy. There is crazy to her, but it's not that Joker. And that's part of the reason why I think if Joker knew about her, he'd be upset with this, because this isn't what he would want to be his representation. And he's not going to waste the time to mold her to how he wants her. He would simply kill her and be done with the imposter and just... Okay, see ya. And
you know what, though? It depends on the day with him. I disagree with you there. Because I think you're right. That could be Tuesday. But on Thursday, the Joker could say, "Oh, it'd be really fun to make her see what it's really like to be me."
You know what? I completely give you on that one.
So I think I'm not disputing you. You're right, but that's a different day of the week.
This is what makes the Joker so wonderful of a character.
Yeah, you can't pin him down to one choice.
I gotta say, it's funny because we're having this discussion. We have this understanding of who she is, and
I love it.
Her personality. So that just tells you how really cool they've taken their time in crafting this character and making her someone of substance. When I remember when they first started mentioning Joker's daughter, and the first started, there had been notions of there's going to be a Joker's daughter out there. I was like, really? And I was thinking alternate universe, come to this one. How are they going to do it? But I gotta tell you, I love this character. I want to see her around. When she had her Catwoman appearance, I was like, oh, that's awesome. We need to have more Joker's daughter in this universe. We need to have more stuff like this.
Well, see, this is where I do think that there's a part of her that's crazy. She's so into searching for an identity and forcing that search for the identity, which matches what you're saying, because that's why I'm nodding and agreeing with you. And nothing I'm saying here is really about disputing you. It's just how I see that she's crazy. Where I see that she's crazy is she's so willing to abandon who she was before. And not willing, she pushes so hard, which is really what you're talking about there, to abandon what she is. She forces the abandonment of what she is for. She forces the daddy thing. She's all about doing that to such an extreme. That's where the craziness comes in. She's willing to go to any level to force this thought process, this belief, this whole concept that she surrounded herself in, and that she wants everybody else to believe what she's forced into her own mind. And it really is a quest for identity. It's a very sad quest for identity that is wacky and crazy, and this whole other... We were talking about the charm of Harley Quinn just a few seconds ago. Very different place that she's in, because that's who she is. She is that. Like, there's no put on there. That's why there's almost a fun factor. This is twisted. Equally as valid, but it's very twisted. This is a very twisted tale. Not that Harley wasn't twisted, but it's a different sort of twisted. Yeah. I applaud the creative team for this issue because of the fact that it really feels... It's funny to talk... That's why I wanted to talk about these two books at the same time, because, wow, two girls that are deeply connected to the Joker are every bit as valid as Batgirl and Batwoman.
Exactly. And it's funny because with Batman's appearance in this, how awesome was he in this? Again, another character that he feels natural in here, where he recognizes what's going on. He even leads her to the trap to where the Joker died, or quote unquote died, or whatever you want to say with the Joker, because we're not certain. But that whole process of Batman just showing how good he is and how he immediately recognized what's going on, and he's able to lead her away from stuff, and he's able to do the Batman stuff.
You know something I didn't notice before with the character in that sequence where it's the hello beautiful and she's jumping off there? I didn't notice that she scarred the ha 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 on her stomach.
Yeah.
Did you notice that before?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't notice it before then. And it may be just because I think I've been so focused on the character's face that, the fact that she's wearing Joker's face and her outfit overall, sure, but I never really focused on that. She's scarring herself regularly along the way. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see her next appearance, her to have more scarring.
Yeah. And the scene from that I caught after like a second and third read-through were the eyes. In the Joker eyes that are in the face, that are in the wall, in the green wall. Or cave wall or whatever, those two eyes that are there. When I first read this through, I'm seeing the Batman and I see her, hello, beautiful. I'm like, oh, okay. It wasn't until I went back on my art read through that I started picking up the little stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, the creative team really did just such an amazing job. You're talking about over the waterfall?
Yeah, when you first see Batman with the waterfall and, right before Hello, Beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where you see the two eyes sitting right there. Yeah, it's beautiful. I really enjoyed the art style for this. This felt like a very independent, and it could be just because I wasn't as familiar with the creative team. It felt like a very independent take on this, yet they did their research, they did their homework, and I think there's something to that. Like, I hope to see this creative team on more projects. And I'm interested, after reading this issue, in getting to know more about what other work they've done, because I'm not familiar with them, admittedly. And I am a fan of stuff like this where, oh, wow, they really nailed this. I want to know more about them. I want to see what other work they've done, because I'd like to read it, and be a part of it. I don't know what their background is. This has put them on my radar, and that is a home run when you can do something at a DC with something like this, and all of a sudden, you kind of perk up and go, oh, I don't know who they are, but they certainly, if they've got other work, I want to see what it is, because this is really twisted. It was a great creative team effort on this.
Yeah, and it's funny with the twisted...
Wait, hold on. I apologize. Hold that thought for 1 second, because this backs up a lot of what you're saying. You have a chance to walk away from this, to get help. This kind of goes back to I've got to get this line in there, because it's something I really wanted to make sure to mention. No, I need this. I'm the Joker's daughter. Hit me like you hit one of your supervillains, Batman. It's that forcing herself to be that person that we were talking about earlier, that you were stressing. It really goes back to validating your points earlier. That gives her a unique brand of whatever, crazy or whatever you want to call it. And I'm sorry, please go ahead. I just didn't want to forget that, because I wasn't thinking totally along the way that you were presenting it. And it's funny how, I wanted to make sure to say that line, because I thought it was a cool line that really stresses who she is, and I think it validates everything we've been saying. Go ahead.
Well, and even continuing on right there, where Bruce is telling you, you're not a villain, girl. You're just a child with an obscene mask. And it's some of the best stuff are where Joker's able to play the mind games, and she's kind of trying to do that, because she's throws back the, hey, look who's talking. But it's not really that same level, because she doesn't have that same level of intellect. She doesn't have that same game that Joker has, and it's just as that whole sequence playing out where Bruce, where Batman sets her up to be captured by the cops, and right there, it's a lead through. As I said, this is a great Batman in this. But even just her, we talk about her cutting herself, and just everything she's doing throughout this, just to get the attention, just to prove this is who I am, when she doesn't really know who she is. I'd love to see, this is a character I would like to see more of. I would like to see more exploration of just her craziness and just where she goes from here.
Could she be just as dangerous, or only because she's so in a different way? I'm not putting her in the same category, because I'm really agreeing with everything you were saying about how there's something unique to her. But when you are so obsessed with proving yourself to be this, to the point where you will do things just for the purpose of getting that notice, forcing that attention, the less attention she gets toward what she wants to be, the less validation she gets as to who she says she is. Isn't that only going to just push her to continue to go farther and farther, push more and more and more to be validated as that? Isn't that going to make her more and more dangerous with every appearance, with every act that she does? We're going to see her in unpredictable ways doing more and more crazy things to force this perception. Isn't she going to do that?
Eventually, she's going to push over the edge. She's going to go over the limit. Like in this one, the school bus was filled with mannequins, not with real children. Mm-hmm. Joker would have had real children.
Right.
The one cop that she gouges out his eyeball, Joker would have finished him off. Well, maybe the guy with the eyeball, maybe let him live just to, so he'd have to deal with it. But the lady she chokes with it would have been dead. There's no way she would have left her alive. That Joker wouldn't have done that. So she doesn't have that killer instinct.
Yeah,
she doesn't take it to that one level. But eventually, that is going to click in her head. And when that happens, that's when she's going to have to be dealt with severely. And it's, I don't know if, with counseling, if she could be helped at this point in time, or what they would have to do, or if she's going to be one of those Arkham lockups that you can't let out on the street again. But, she's still kind of at a crossroads where she's not at the point of pure desperation that she's, completely over the edge and there's no redeemability for her. And I think that is what I want to see. I want to see if she does cross over the line or if she doesn't.
She did. She killed Aaron.
Yeah, she does kill that guy. Okay.
I mean, and you couldn't, or Roger, I'm sorry. She killed Roger. The Roger was the one that was there during the whole Joker sequence where she was, asking for what happened and that connection there. You're right that she kept skirting that line throughout this, even with the police officer, even with the worker there, the girl. Yeah. But then when he stops her, she finally crosses that line. They said I couldn't do it. I can finish what I started. That was where she crossed the line. It's the first time she did. That's what I'm saying. I think this is a girl who is just going to continue pushing the envelope further. And it doesn't invalidate anything you said. It just shows that there comes a point where a drive becomes you force yourself so much to believe something that you develop your own brand of nuts. Mm-hmm. It's an obsession. This is an obsession for her to be validated. So it's a different kind of crazy obsession. Obsession leads you down a different path to get to a place of the crazy that we see in, the Gotham usually. Hers is obsession driven. I don't know what's going to happen with her. She's very, very interesting.
Now, did she actually kill her parents? Because when what's her name is doing the mind scan, and we get that flashback to her where she's 15 and she's teen angst cutting herself, and then the next scene she's 16, blonde, and she's ready to kill her parents. Does she actually do it, or is this what she thinks in her mind? Because those are the moments that I was like questioning, because it's from an outside person, seeing in, but is it she's able to convince herself that didn't happen, that actually happened?
I can pass an electron or two through your brain, stimulate your brain to grief or guilt, but I cannot see the things you see. I can only hear the things you babble as you seize and foam, and I have heard enough to know. I knew from the blood on your shoes you are no patient to be healed. How dare you? You are not mad, you are sane and a liar. Masks under masks, dozen histories, a dozen personalities, not a single one of them true. You steal real grief, real tragedies, and sew them into your story, but you have never known one of them. You offend all of those who have survived that which about you lie. You don't even know who you are. Did she do that? Yeah, probably. But if she did, it's again this quest for the changing hair. Doing that, then changing her look again. If she did it, I understand why you say it's suspect, and I would agree that I wouldn't be surprised to find out she didn't actually do it, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that she actually did. Let's just go on to the assumption for right now, just for storytelling purposes, that what she's witnessing, because it's in her mind, not what she's telling, that perhaps it's true. Perhaps, but I agree even so with her forcing a story arc. Maybe it's not true. Maybe that's just another mask that she was wearing.
Because I've read those sequences a couple times, and I started looking at it, and part of me thinks she had the thought where she wanted to kill her parents. Mm-hmm. And maybe she even had that moment where she's standing in the living room, the knife behind her back, but I don't think she actually stuck it in them. I don't think she actually killed them, but in her mind, she's like, I should do this. And in her mind, she probably thinks she did actually do it. It's one of those things where, your fantasy world becomes your reality to the point where you think it is actually what happened to you. And you can swear up and down 100% that, yes, I did this, even though you really didn't do it. Even though you didn't really, kill the parents or, I think, Roger was her first body count. I think that was body number one. She had a couple in the underground, I think. Yeah, she had a couple in the underground. But really, Roger, I think, that was the first time she really did it.
Now, the whole doll maker thing at the end, this is, again, she takes to heart everything that was said to her. She goes to doll maker, and this is her way of basically saying, I am committing to this identity. And you've got a choice right now. You could either give me this identity, or I will take you on as my identity. It's very interesting how sewing on the face for her is more of a validation in her mind that she now is committed and she deeply is this person. The first killer that, the first person that she killed, whether it's the person at Arkham or her parents, I don't know. But it really goes to the point that she is forcing this scenario to the point where she's injecting herself with Joker blood. I mean, crazy nuts. That can go horribly wrong.
Yeah, because you never know where he's been.
Yeah. And with and with different blood types and with stuff like that. Oh, wait, hold on. Jim, there's validation of this. When she's lying on the ground in that circle.
Yeah.
Look at the next page. I'd never killed before tonight. Which is worse, to have given my life to a god of evil or to a god that doesn't even exist? Now I will say, now I will be the one to say who lives or dies in Gotham. I will not be the god that fell. The face will rot. And what will I be left with? A face and more ugly and terrifying than the Joker's. So, this whole, thing right now, she's realizing that the face is going to fall off. This is crafting for her an identity that will be, in her mind, more ugly and terrifying than the Joker's. She's validating for herself who she sees herself as. I don't know that it's crafting an identity. It's still maybe the same thing. Do you think the note's from the Joker?
Oh, God, no. It's 100% from herself. And she doesn't realize it.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I'm not saying that to say that you're wrong.
Yeah.
I agree with the possibility. Considering our loony friend, I gotta question that. Because I do think that gets that note in a moment of truth. Where she's sitting here saying, I'd never killed before tonight. So it would to me seem odd in that moment for her to grab a lie. I don't know, but yet you may be right. I'm not 100% sure either way on that.
And I'm going to argue the point, but I'm going to argue it under the preference that I could very easily be wrong. Mm-hmm. My main arguments come from two things. One, because she's a pathological liar who needs some type of validation of her conviction, and a note from the Joker would be that validation. But two, you look at when she left the note for Batman in the bus, the "miss me," and the "hello beautiful" she said to him when she was attacking. So then she gets a note that says "hello beautiful" with, it looks like a very similar style as the other one. So I'm like, that's where I'm thinking it came from her, because it's. Yeah, and again, it adds to the fact that she needs validation in her life. She had this moment of realization where she's like, hey, what am I? I'm not, is this who I am? So so her subconscious says, let's create some validation. Let's make her, get more locked into this persona. So that's where that's my belief on it. Now, if we find out later that it was the Joker, I'd be like, cool, okay, let's see where this goes.
Just her dialogue. I mean, just this whole sequence where she's sitting here saying, I think now that he would kill me if he ever truly saw me. And maybe I was once only a sick child playing at murder. Not anymore. The crown has come to me. Its power has come to me. I was your prophet, and I am your heir. And I will make all of Gotham bleed as I once bled for you. That's a sweet, ugly cat killing those rats for me. A note. But I would know we're purple, and in that moment I just can't help but wonder, and you're right, is it her lying to herself? True. So everything you said, I nod at and go, yeah, but there's something about the dialogue leading up to it that I'm like, was she still at a point where she needed to do that, or did this just send her back down that crazy path? I don't know. It's a fascinating story, because there's not a part of me that was like listening to you going, wow, Jim, you're wrong. I know, but yet I see the other side of it, and that's the part that really I find fascinating about this story. I don't know, like, it's not fair to say that this girl, like, when she was being grabbed and told that she's sane and a liar and all that, you sort of, I don't know, like, what part of this do you look at and go, you're sane? I don't see that. There's conscious choice that makes you crazy. And there comes a point where certain decisions that you make you crazy. That you would do those things. I don't know. Ooh.
Yeah, she's that crazy cool character. Again, she's a different type of crazy than Harley.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome that we can have these variations on insane. And I want to see more of her. I want to see, and it's funny because I don't want her at the level of where she would have her own series. because I think Harley can pull off her own series. I don't know if she could completely pull it off, but I definitely want to see her in more Bat books or more, because the Gotham is her universe. I want to see her interacting with some of those characters and see how that plays out. That the Catwoman in her was absolutely wonderful. Batgirl in her would be a great mix-up. In a way, Bruce, I don't know if he would actually waste his time on her, but if she's going to start increasing the body count, guess what? She's going to be on the Bat radar, so she may get pulled into his world.
Well,
so there's
after she sliced that,
with her.
She sliced a guy in half.
Right.
That puts you on the radar.
Well, definitely does put you on the radar, but she's not, I wouldn't say high priority. He's not going to start hunting her down to try to find her with the one guy. And it's prioritized.
You don't think that, like, if you're looking at her as somebody trying to validate herself, that you wouldn't make her a priority, because knowing that if she did that, she's only going to do more now? She's not going to do the same thing again. It's not going to be a one-shot deal. She's going to go bigger, right? I mean, we have to see that, because that was crossing a line for her. This opened the floodgates.
Yes, it does cross the line, and yes, it does increase the priority, but I don't see Batman going after her yet. I can see him talking to any of the other members of the family and looking into her and trying to figure out who she is and what's going on with her, but I can't see him, like, if it was the Joker loose, then yeah, he jumps on it immediately. This is a character that he's got her in his radar, he's got her in his mindset, but he's not actively, he doesn't have an open active case file going after her. There's not we got to target her, we got to find her, we got to bring her down right now.
I'm going to disagree. When you as soon as you realize somebody was chopped in half, and, before you thought she was a pretender, now she chopped somebody in half, she's got to be more on the radar now. There's a difference between pretending and not actually killing and crossing the line to kill. And recognizing that now that she's done this, the bus before that had mannequins would have people in it next time.
I'll give you a true on that. There's definitely is need to move her up the list and make her, to open investigate her. She has crossed that line. So we do have a definite, villain now on our hands that has to be taken down. But it's a prioritizing thing. I still don't see her at the level of, like, Two-Face or the level of Penguin, stuff like that. Agreed.
And I agree with you.
That's where I'm at. That's why I'm saying she's not a priority. She's not a high mission critical priority. She's on his radar, and if he sees her, he'll take her down. But he's not going to be up all night trying to figure out her pattern and go after her.
Because he's got other priorities.
Right, because he's got other ones that he knows will kill, millions. He knows will do this type of stuff. Right. He's got to focus on those that are out there.
I think the difference is, though, before you mentioned that he wouldn't have an active case file on her, I disagree. She has to have an active case file. I agree with you, though, that it's not the same priority as a Scarecrow.
Right.
With what he's doing with Gothopia and all that kind of stuff right now. So I agree with you. That part I agree with, but I do think that she would, at this point, once you chop somebody and you've proven you're a certain kind of nut job, which it's hard to, she's got a unique label. The funny part is, you mentioned before about not with her, would she be good for a series? I think what was developed here by this creative team would make an interesting series or mini-series going forward. And I only say that because I would love to see this creative team on something else. So if it's not this, I really thought they delivered a very well-crafted issue. I would like to see them on a mini or something. I hope there's something down the pipeline for them, another opportunity for them to showcase what they did here. Because this issue had a really incredible pace to it. It, from start to finish, didn't stop. There was no wasted anything. I mean, it was a very good-looking Twisted book. And I don't know. I would like to get in the heads of these creators a little bit more and see them just have another project at DC, because I think they're delivering something interesting and unique. Whether it's more Joker's Daughter or more of something else, I don't know. I just like to see them, because I thought they were really just gelled. This is a good issue. I wanted to talk about this.
Oh yeah, and this is one of those where, again, it's a book that does have you thinking off page. Does have you thinking, what else could they do with her? When I say I don't think she's not at the Harley Quinn level where she could have her own series. I'm not knocking the character. This is just the beginning parts of this character. I do want to see her active in the DC universe. I do want to see her going up against the Bat Family because there is this nice solid foundation. This is a really deep character that the right creative team, like we saw right here, could do wonderful things with this character because she is an all type of different level of crazy. It's not the same Joker stories you would get. Right. You would have to do different variations on her. And I think that makes the character, that gives the character strength.
Yeah, and you have to be judicious on the choices that you make from that. So I agree with you there. I'm just saying if they tomorrow said, you know, we really liked this one shot, we want to give this creative team a chance to flesh out this character even further in her own series, I'd be all on it. I just think it's great. I mean, it was really a good issue. Now, the problem is you have to be judicious with that. You can't launch everything into a series. And I totally agree that I don't see that happening in this particular case. But I certainly would be thrilled if they did it, just because I thought this creative team did a great job. And I think that's where it's, you know, that's where I think there was a home run there. But echoing what you're saying, I think she's going to blend in more to the universe proper, and we'll see her pop up from time to time. So I think you have a point there. It was really just a good book. I hope they do more one-shots like that, because I really found that entertaining.
Yeah, these can be fun. And it's funny I'm saying this, because if you recall back when we first started, the one-shot was something like, I don't know, I wasn't too excited about when we first started doing this. By now, I'm like, oh, no, these are awesome. This is a great, you know, just that little taste, and that just give us that insight into that character. I dig these things now.
Yeah, and I would recommend when they do experiments like one-shots and anthologies and miniseries, shout them out to your friends if you like them. I'm not saying just, you know, blindly shout them out, but, you know, like I wanted to talk about this one because these are unique experiences, and I think when they're delivered like this, they should be validated and valued, and they should get, you know, a number of people, you know, go grab it. If you didn't grab it digitally, grab it at your comic shop, whatever your preferences of grabbing these type of titles, do it and give it a shot. Let us know how you felt about it. And I would say that with anything we talked about on this episode, you know, please feel free to give us your thoughts on how you're feeling about any of this stuff. Just because I think there's a point to getting the word out for unique experiences like this. They don't have to launch into a series. I'm fine with that. But I would love to see like another one-shot spotlighting somebody else, you know, where they made a major appearance in a book and there was a story to be told there. Because this is great because it felt like it was right after what was going on in Catwoman. It gave us an idea of where this girl's status quo is going now, you know, how she's evolved a bit now because of all this. And it makes me excited for her next appearance. And this is what I want to see. So I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny. The thing you just said reminded me of a conversation I had with somebody I work with, because they were asking about the podcast, and I told them the name's Raging Bullets and explained the DC Bullet to them. And when it came to the raging part, they immediately thought I was talking about, you know, just, I hate like the angry. I'm like, no, it's not. Rage isn't about, you know, hate and anger. Rage is about fiery passion. It's about what you love. You're ranting and you're attacking with just this vim and vigor about, you know, what is super awesome, what is cool about this, you know, this medium that we love. And that's where the rage comes from. It's not a negative rage. It's a positive rage. It's a passion. It's a fire.
I love that. I don't know that we ever got that complicated with it when we originally came up with it, but you're right. It's kind of evolved into that.
Yeah, this is the rage, man. We're taking back the word. Rage is no longer a bad thing. Rage is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go out there and show some rage. Yep. It just sounds wrong on so many levels. I like your explanation. It sounds like we had that as a plan. It's funny how, like, the DC Bullet thing is really a nod to DC's past because they don't really have a bullet anymore.
Yeah.
But I like that. I kind of like that it's kind of now this the thing, like a kind of a holdback from classic DC history. So, anyway, great one-shot.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Vince. I'm the guy that had the email exchange with Sean on the Batman chess set. First of all, a huge shout out to you guys on the podcast. You know, the passion that you bring to the DC universe is fantastic. I've been listening now for a couple of years, and I think you guys are at your best when you debate with one another on key topics. You know, what's really neat about your podcast is that you can pick it up and tune in anytime you want, and it's almost kind of like you're down at the comic book store and listening to a debate about the DC universe. So that said, I have a little take on Aquaman. I know that both of you guys are huge Aquaman fans of the current book. You know, a product of the 60s. My passion is Batman, and not far behind is the Justice League, and that kind of brings me to Aquaman. You know, he's the epitome of an A-list superhero wannabe. And as comic fans, we've seen it all. You know, back in the 60s, we had the Captain Action Aquaman. Then we had the Super Friends Aquaman. We had somewhere the long-haired, angry, hook-hand Aquaman. And, of course, we had the Vinny Chase Entourage Aquaman. But after years, I gave up on the character. And then I heard you guys kind of raving about the book after the launch of the New 52. And so I picked it up. And as a son of an artist, the first thing I noticed was the artwork. You know, I thought DC really hit a home run with the team of Reese and Prado. The team on one hand could really pick just fantastic tight shots on the dialogue with Aquaman and Mira with the townspeople, and then also then quickly moved to big epic battle scenes. But what I really liked about the first few issues was that Johns took Aquaman kind of into the real world and just hit all these jokes about Aquaman head on. And I thought he did a fantastic job. You know, again, artwork was great. They had some fantastic foes in the first few issues with the Trench. And, you know, what Jeff Johns did with Mira I thought was great also. You know, she was gorgeous, she was bad, powerful, and really brought some interest to that character. And I can probably sense you expect a butt here any moment. But somewhere after the first 6 issues, Jeff Johns moved on to what he introduced the others. And he went on for, it was like 7 issues or so, telling a story about the others, and it was almost like the guy lost interest in Aquaman, and eventually I dropped the book, which brings me to my question to you guys. So if you were DC, how would you bring Aquaman into the mainstream, and what would you be doing to position him for an eventual big screen appearance? Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work and appreciate your dedication to DC Universe. Bye.
Well, I think some of it is what he's saying. I think the point that he's making is that I really wanted to get attached more to Aquaman and Mira and to his landscape before we got into this other team that he had. And I was a big fan of the other storyline, so I've got to put a little caveat on that. I'm a fan of the idea that they're having 2 books. They're going to have Aquaman and then Aquaman and the Others, because I liked the Others characters, but I don't want them, like he said, to dominate the Aquaman storyline all the time. After the Others storyline, when they went back to this the First King, and they got back into the mythos and all that, I think that's a great benefit to getting to know Aquaman and his world and his characters. It's interesting if the other storyline had popped up maybe a couple more years into the run, if he would have felt the same way. I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I adored the other storyline, so I'm not the best person to answer it. But I also come from a background of loving Aquaman as character that was written when Peter David was running him, and straight on through to now Jeff Johns taking over the character. I've had a lot of love for Aquaman. So I've got that history there. So the Others thing was like a fresh new addition to the mythos, where in his case, he's like, I've just gotten attached to liking Aquaman. Didn't really care for him before. I want to see more focus on him. We jump to this team now when I really wanted to see more of his story. I can see his point and how that would affect him. It just didn't affect me that way. What about you? I mean, where do you connect with what he was saying, or where do you fit into that?
Well, first off, I liked the Vinny Chase Aquaman. I thought Mandy Moore as Mira was a really good fit, and they had a great on-screen chemistry. I just wish, he would have been in the sequel, because I think that probably would have made that movie a little bit better. First off, hey, in my head, I saw the movie. Okay.
But by the way, there's going to be a guy over your house later to sew the face on, so we'll.
And for those who don't know, the TV show Entourage, right. The main character is Vinny Chase, and throughout it, he was playing. He did the Aquaman movies. All that's from that show. That's where it's coming from for people like, what the heck's he talking about? An Aquaman movie? I want to look this up. It doesn't actually exist. So, with me and Aquaman, I was really and he and I kind of had the same sentiments where I was really digging those opening stuff. And when they introduced the others, I did feel it took away from Aquaman. But where we differ, I also liked that other story. I liked it showing the piece of Aquaman. I liked that it showed, this, gave us a little bit more in depth on the character, where he's from, what he's done. And where he can possibly go. So the split to Aquaman and the others is something I am looking forward to, because we'll still have this Aquaman title that can really go in depth into who Aquaman is, Mira, the underwater world Atlantis, everything that's happening there. And then we have this other story where we'll get to see him interacting with his team, or the actions of his team without him, or and variations on how they're going to tell the story. Now, for mainstream, I think Aquaman is going to have the hardest of all the characters, because everybody has this notion in their head, oh, he's the guy who talks to fish. Mm-hmm. And they even commented on that in the comic book, how people look down at him, but no one really sits there and thinks about, if this guy can swim through the bottom of the ocean with all that pressure, how strong is he really? He's massively strong. He's not just someone who talks to fishes. There's power levels, of Superman level strength. And you got to educate not just the comic book fans, but the everyday average person has to be educated in that. And that's going to be their biggest, argument and their biggest risk. And with Aquaman, I think they would need to do a very heavy focus on him, showing just the power levels this guy has. I'm thinking if they could do like how they did with Thor, where give Aquaman his own movie, the first initial run of that probably wouldn't do as well, because people are like, oh, he's just the fish guy.
Hold on. I'm going to stop there for 1 second, because first of all, I don't think that they all have to be A-list characters for them to be a successful movie. When I'm saying hold on, let's take Thor out of it and put Iron Man into it. Do you think, I love Iron Man. As a comic fan, I always knew who Iron Man was. Do you think Iron Man was as well known as Spider-Man, Superman, or Batman?
No.
Is he now?
Oh, definitely now.
It's because of the fact that it was a well-crafted movie that's true to the core of who the character is, doing what you're saying, educating. And the reason why is I think Iron Man over Thor. And Thor was, has obviously done very well in the box office as well. But I think out of the two characters, you could argue which is the more well-known Marvel property. Iron Man's 3 movies clearly have resonated with an audience on a completely different level. I think casting, script writing, really being able to separate and distinguish what makes Aquaman cool. He mentioned the fact that there was certain storylines that resonated with him. You need to focus on those types of storylines if you bring it to film. So when he's mentioning what he connected with, you need to make sure you're pulling in the Aquaman storylines that connect with the larger audience to do what you're saying, to educate, because your point there is very valid. But I would go to Iron Man with that and say, look, this is why was Iron Man so successful? Well, because first of all, they put an actor in as Iron Man that, is Iron Man. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., really, and not even talking about first of all, his personal life story and all that obviously resonates there as well, but he's an actor who really got to know the character, his swagger, and he forced the audience to be educated on who Iron Man is with his portrayal. I think he just did a brilliant job. You need to, if you want Aquaman to be mainstream, the casting of Aquaman needs to be very careful. It needs to be somebody who can really bring to life the best of who the character is. You need to look at the Jeff Johns run, especially the initial opening of it that he's talking about that he enjoyed. You need to key in on that. Not be afraid to do a wink and a nod to people who are familiar with Aquaman because of the jokes. Jeff Johns didn't shy away from that. He made that a part of it. He basically set up an Aquaman that was connected to every audience base that ever heard of the character on any level. People who attacked the book and read it because it was written by Jeff Johns, he had something there for them to just say, okay, I know this is what you think of Aquaman, and you think he's a B-list. My other thing is, too, does that mean that he needs to become an A-list character like Superman and Batman? No. I don't know that Flash needs to. I don't know that Green Arrow needs to. Those characters can be B and C-list characters. Not saying that that's necessarily how I feel about them, but there are certain characters that are going to be these iconic names that have... Why is Superman and Batman, why are they A-list characters? They've had serials. They've had radio shows. They've had, the rich history. You can't compare Aquaman's history to them. So why do we need to? Let's just deliver if they feel that this is a viable character they want to work with, deliver the best Aquaman movie around. He'll become more mainstream because of the quality of the movie. And that's really how you're going to make him more mainstream. He's never going to be Superman and Batman. I don't think he needs to be. I don't think any of them need to be. They just need to, you can do 2 or 3 films off of a guy that, if it's a quality film and unique enough, the underwater world of Atlantis, I think, is in and of itself. You got the right cast, the right script, the right buzz around the movie. You're going to generate an audience base that's going to go see it. I think you're going to get a crowd that will see an Aquaman movie based on the fact that, Aquaman, really? They're doing that? Let's go see this train wreck. and get pleasantly surprised by how good it really is. He's a character that does have name recognition on a deep level. That in and of itself will draw people into the theater. I would be more than let's say more than doing like a Metal Men, for example. Let's throw that out there. I think Metal Men would make a great movie myself. I think that there's an opportunity to do some really cool things. But if you're going to go on name recognition alone that would draw people into the theaters, I think Aquaman has that name recognition. If you do trailers and a script that really makes people go, wow, I want to see that.
Yeah, see, the reason I throw the comparison to Thor as compared to Iron Man is whenever a superhero movie comes out, the people I work with and the various people I know at work will come up to me and talk to me about the movie and the character and whatnot. I'm the comic book guy, so they come to me first. And when the difference between Thor and Iron Man is the people who didn't know comic books knew Iron Man was a rich guy in a super powerful suit. They knew that's what they knew about him. When it came to about being Thor, they just figured, he got a big hammer, right? He shoots lightning, and they knew nothing about any of it. Is it actually Thor? Is it any of that stuff? So with them, they looked at just the basic concept of Thor, and they're like, but maybe that Iron Man, the guy in the iron costume, that could be pretty cool. What's he like? What's that character like? And so I was able to tell him, it seems like he'll make a really good Tony Stark, and I'm thinking they got the potential to see something cool there. And when they came to me on Thor, I'm like, hey, Thor's a cool character. It should be a nice, good, big guy beats people up kind of action adventure type movie. But when you think, and it's that thought process that they had, a very vague notion of what Thor is the same thought process they have on Aquaman. Because everybody who doesn't really read comics just thinks, he's the guy who talks to fish.
Super
Friends. That's all they think about with Aquaman is the Aquaman Super Friends. So I think that's why I think Aquaman will have a harder time being that, that A-list, being that, that character that people say, that's a really cool character. They really have to do something. It can't just be a flash of an image.
No. That's why I said trailers. But I think, here's the thing where I think Aquaman has going for it that I think puts him closer to the Iron Man concept. Super Friends. Besides Super Friends, you've had Batman Brave and the Bold. He was in that cartoon. So you've got an audience of younger children that are aware of the character from that. The version that was in that, which was really cool. I quite enjoyed that cartoon. I think that there is a nostalgia factor to him that will draw a larger audience that's more casual, that would be curious, if your trailers are done right. The trailers are pivotal you've got to show people why they would be interested in seeing this movie. And the only way that's going to work is if you have a great, well-produced trailer. I agree with you. A flash of an image of him is not going to do it.
Right.
But I don't think they did that. And maybe that's where your Thor comparison. But I think Iron Man's the same thing. I think the iron suit, you're right. And that's where you've got a point. You can do a flash of an image of a really cool Iron Man suit.
I still remember the Iron Man trailer.
Right.
That I saw. It was it was a Sabbath's Iron Man, and he's walking in that prototype that he used to escape, and they did that whole sequence, and that's what the image they gave with Iron Man. That really caught people's attention.
Robert Downey Jr.'s casting did. See, that's
both of those two equal parts there. I will give that.
That's why I said, and you're right, that's not disputing you. What you said is true. But there's parts of that, like Iron Man was huge because of so many elements. I think if you want to recreate some magic with Aquaman, you've got to come up with a casting that really, and I don't know what you would do. You'd have to think long and hard. And I think they should be, if they're not already doing this, they should be. Whoever they cast in the Justice League movie for Aquaman has got, if they're doing Aquaman for that movie, which I would assume. So it's a big assumption, because they don't really have to. But if they do an Aquaman for the Justice League movie, it would be interesting to see who they cast. And see, that's where they have an interesting opportunity. I think Avengers did a great job of redeeming the Hulk.
Definitely.
And I think you can do, Aquaman has an advantage being introduced in the Justice League movie, if they go that route. Because what they can do is introduce him in a Justice League movie, see how people react to him, and make a decision to do a solo movie with him. They have a huge advantage there. So that's going to be a different sort of perspective on that. Then you go to, he's got to really deliver in the Justice League movie. So that would be my answer to him on that one. Great casting, great delivery of him in the Justice League movie will make people want to see him in a solo movie. That's where I guess I'm assuming, because we're not going to see a solo Aquaman movie before we see Justice League.
Yeah, we shouldn't. I say we shouldn't, but on the one hand, I think it would actually help out if they hit that right boom. If they hit it with the boom and they bring it, I think it could help out the Justice League movie if we see Aquaman isn't just the guy who talks to fish. So going into the movie, we know who Superman is, we know who Batman is, we got a good understanding of who Wonder Woman is. Now we're seeing Aquaman isn't just the guy who talks to fish. This Justice League movie could be cool.
See, I'm going to be honest, though. If Superman Batman is a home run, they don't need any help for Justice League. Because if you go from Man of Steel to Superman Batman, and Superman Batman takes it to another level, then if you make that the third movie in this series, which it would logically be, you don't need any help.
Hey, you know what they could do? Since Ben Affleck is our Batman, we can make Matt Damon our Aquaman.
Do you know that would totally not? And here's the funny part, though. There's rumors from time to time of Matt Damon having some form of role, and I love Matt Damon. I think you could do him in certain roles. That
would get destroyed even before the
only way
dry.
The only way you could ever make that work would be you have got to hide that announcement until after the Superman Batman movie does well.
Right.
Like if Ben Affleck gets like this amazing critical acclaim for his role as Batman, then you could do that because people go, but you griped about Ben Affleck. Look how great he was. So I don't know. That would be really, really tricky. It's an interesting discussion point because you can have a discussion as far as what would make a singular Aquaman movie work and what would make him work in Justice League, and they're two very different animals.
Hello, Sean and Jim. This is Hugo Rivera calling from Anaheim, California. Love your show. Have listened many times. Don't call often because I just love what you guys bring to the podcast. Always positive, and that's just the way I am. When you were having your discussion about Dick Grayson and what's happening in his title, which I love Kyle Higgins, the way he's handling it. And you guys were talking about how it might disrupt what Kyle Higgins had coming, this forever evil stuff and his identity and all that. Well, how about the theory that Kyle knew from the beginning what was going to happen with Dick and his identity, and that's why slowly he started taking out all the parts of his past. You know what happened to the circus. You know what happened to the people at the circus. Then he went to confront Tony Zuko because he found out he was alive. And all that is in preparation for him to not have to deal with his past anymore, with his circus life, and just look into the future. He's going to have a new identity maybe, or moving it forward, so to speak. I don't know, just listening to you guys, that's one of the things that sprung to my mind, and I don't know, what do you guys think? Love the show, and I'll keep listening, and hope to hear you guys later. Bye.
I think it'd be cool if that was the case. I don't know that it was. And I mean, nor do I need to necessarily know if it was or it wasn't. Other than, I think Kyle Higgins did an amazing job on his arcs. I think my personal feeling is he explored Dick's rich history because those are the things that resonate with us as fans. And it's funny how, either way it worked. Let's say he's right, because he could be. Who knows? I don't know how much he knew ahead of time what he's going to do. But let's say he was right and he knew. That's brilliant then, because what he did is exactly what Hugo said. He went through and laid it all out and said, hey, we're going to kind of a part of Dick Grayson's past that we won't be able to explore with changing his identity. We're going to explore here. I thought that was really, really, that would be a cool idea. My feeling, though, is I wonder, in the creation of something like Forever Evil, the big shock event of having Dick Grayson kidnapped like that, did they know that when Nightwing started at the beginning of the New 52? I doubt it. But I might be wrong there. What do you think?
I don't know. It's, again, we don't know what happens inside, the going-ons inside behind closed doors. Right. I would like to think that, because we've seen some really solid editorial work, with all the different titles that are being affected by Forever Evil, and how it's a great, they got a nice, it looks like they're talking to each other. It looks like all the titles are in on the same groove. So I would assume that when Forever Evil was being crafted and they came up with this notion, that's right then is when, the Nightwing crew was told, hey, this is what we're doing in Forever Evil. So if it wasn't at the very beginning of the run, it was once Forever Evil was finalized, and once the idea and the concept behind Forever Evil was done. So I'm going to say he probably had some pretty good time, pretty good notice that it's going to happen. It wasn't one of those things where, hey, you got to change your story because guess what? This is happening. Oh, okay. So I want to think that there was some good communication and some solid working. And again, kudos to everybody involved, because we got this great story that did wrap up a lot of the Nightwing stories and the life and times that was Dick Grayson. Now we got a nice clean slate for going into the future. What's going to happen to him?
My feeling is probably it wasn't at the beginning of his run, because I don't know that Forever Evil was crafted at the beginning of his run, which is kind of why I'm thinking that way. I like the way that Hugo presented it, though, because he's right. It does lead. Everything he's saying is correct as far as how it leads in and how well it works. He's right. It works fantastic on that level. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the quality of Kyle Higgins' writing and his understanding who Dick Grayson is and what the fans of Dick Grayson want to read about. So he did a really good job of touching on things that we all want to see. I would hope that the communication happened the way both you and Hugo think it did. I don't know. And that's not me even being negative. I don't know what that looks like. It's a large company with a lot of titles, and I would imagine that your notification on what's happening to your book would depend on where you are on the food chain. A lot more than, and when that discussion's ready to be had, they will tell you.
Right.
So I don't know when and how soon that was. I would hope it's the way that you two said. I don't know. And so I guess that's me being realistic on how it would probably work in a large company that maybe and maybe not you would have that communication. I would hope that he got it at a timely fashion where he could craft his storylines and lead them where at least as close to where he would want them to go. I don't know what that looks like. I really don't. So I don't know. That's not trying to, and I hope I'm not sounding negative with that. It's just kind of a reality of the way big companies work. It works differently than if you have an independently owned book, where you have complete creative freedom to say, hey, I'm going to do this cool crossover, so now I'm going to lead this character there because I know it's coming because I came up with it. Or I was, working directly with a team of 4 people where we crafted this together and I knew it was coming to this. I don't know that it's that simple with the way editorial would work now at both of the big 2. And I would imagine that's slightly different between both companies as well and how they worked. It's just it's a different sort of process now than it used to be. And the writer's role then changes. To me, I have all the more respect for writers working in that environment because I would imagine you have to be really clever at changing on the fly and trying to keep in mind that you have fans that have been reading your work, that you want to connect to that because you appreciate your fans and your readers, or give them a sense of closure of the arcs that they've been reading beforehand before they drop into this status quo change for a character. I would imagine it's very tough for writers and creative teams to make that shift on the fly and compress things that maybe you didn't intend on compressing before. Maybe you had a longer arc planned, a longer series of events planned. There's things in the Nightwing run, if you look at it, that, like, for example, in Chicago, the guy who was adopting that identity from the past, that heroic identity from the past, that's obviously not going to go anywhere. It can't. So I guess that's why I'm questioning, if that makes sense, like how much he knew, how much time he had. And it could very much be an issue of, like, hey, we decided this in Forever Evil, here you are. And he was already painted in the corner of, I crafted this long storyline, now I can't do it. It's just kind of the way things work, unfortunately. That's the way I kind of think it happened myself. And that's just based on the book that I'm reading right now. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just kind of the way I like greatly what's going on with him in Forever Evil. I've loved Nightwing greatly. So, I think crossovers do this from time to time. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's just kind of the way that the cookie crumbles. I don't know. I don't know if you agree with me, disagree with me, or...
No, it's one of those things we don't know. Yeah. In the end, we really don't know what happened. So it's, but to me, the most important part, and I know it's the most important part to you, is did we get a good story? Mm-hmm. Did we? Yes, we did. Let's move on. Cool. Am I excited and anticipating what's going to happen next for Dick Grayson? Yes. I want to see where the character goes, what happens to him. Does he stick around? Does he change his name? Does he change the look? Who and what will be Dick Grayson post Forever Evil? That's one of the stories I want to see. That's one of the hanging threads out there that I want to know what is going to happen. What's going to happen to Dick Grayson?
It's a great call because it just makes me. I love where Hugo's coming from on it. And ideally, I would hope it's the way Hugo said it. I want to be wrong on what my assumptions are. So, but I agree, it's assumptions. And I don't know that I'm right on any of it. And I think it's a very cool call. I think one of the things where we all 3 of us connect, Hugo, yourself, and me, would be the fact that, first of all, we all love the character of Nightwing. And a lot of that can be attributed to Kyle Higgins. So we want to see a couple of things come out of this. We want to see big things for Nightwing. And the same quality that we've been seeing for Nightwing, because we clearly have a passion for what's been going on with the character. And I want to see Kyle Higgins wind up on something cool. Whether it's writing Dick Grayson again or writing something else, I just want to see him land on something cool because I think he's a talent that is under the radar. And Nightwing, to me, has been an A-list series since its inception. So this guy needs to be on something major at the end of all this because he gets it and he does it well. So I hope that ends up happening. I really do, just because of it. So that's kind of more where my head's at with the whole thing is I just want to see those things happen, however they come about. Hawkman! Besides the Denver Kickstarter that I mentioned earlier, which is in its final days, I also wanted to quickly shout out She Makes Comics, which is another documentary coming from Sequart. I've mentioned them on the show before, and we've actually had callers call in about the wonderful work that Sequart's doing. And it's just a great, cool Kickstarter talking about really female comic creators and the history there. I'm really excited about this one. It's just they do amazing documentaries that are really rich. I want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388 4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of our show. And I also want to shout out our Facebook group. We have an amazing Facebook group community, and people are joining all the time, and welcome to it if you're new to it. We've had a thriving community there that really is, I've mentioned it before on the podcast, it's really grown beyond our show. These are fellow podcasters, bloggers, fans of comics, fans of pop culture. It's really an open community. So if you have friends of yours that maybe listen to the show casually, or maybe they don't listen to our podcast, but they're just a fan of fun, safe, exciting, positive conversation about the geek culture that we know and love. We have debates that go on there, but it's become a really safe, fun community about just sharing thoughts and ideas and getting excited for this stuff. There's, it doesn't have a lot of the internet snark. People, are really just geeking out and jonesing or putting up discussion topics. What do you think of this casting? What do you think about this type of thing? And that's not to say that people don't say, hey, you know what, I don't like that or things like that, but it's a safe, non-snarky conversation where people just have fun debating and having conversation. And I love that the community has just continued to evolve over time, and it's really due to the great people that are a part of it. So thank you to anybody that listens that's a part of that community. It's grown so far beyond the podcast, and there's some exciting things coming down the road in the future that I can't wait to share with you guys that we have some plans for. But anyway, I want to shout out that we are on Facebook with a Raging Bullets Facebook page that is separate from the group. We have a Twitter account that is linked to ragingbullets.com, which is our show website. I always post up there the status of the show episodes. That way you guys are in the loop as far as what's going on, what content we think we're going to be talking about. That way you guys kind of know, hey, where's the podcast going? Any kind of cool news and things. I'll even post up from time to time Kickstarters that I'm enjoying and being a part of. It's just really cool stuff. And I really I'm a big believer that when it comes to podcasting, the audience is giving time and they want to be in the loop. What's going on with the podcast and all that. So I try to keep that communication open so you guys are a part of what's going on with the show. We really appreciate you. Whether you listen to every episode or portions of episodes or just check in from time to time, we value you, and it's really great to have you a part of our podcast. We're on Google Plus as well. I have personal pages in both services, and please feel free to add yourself to my personal page. I tend to post there myself a little bit more often. That's actually how I connect to the Facebook group for Raging Bullets as well. So please feel free to add it. I consider you all friends by the fact that you listen to podcasts, and I love to connect with each and every one of you. So it's really cool that we have this social networking ability to contact each other. Sponsoring us this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, it's the end of February, which means it's that time of the month again where you're going to start seeing the deals rolling in. It's my favorite time to see what new bundles they're doing, what kind of specials they're offering on hardcovers, trades for pre-order. It's really a wonderful place. The one great thing about DCBService.com is I've been using it for years, so it's great to have them be a show sponsor because I'm just a big believer in the service. Everything is always shipped and packed immaculately, and they just got an amazing customer service. I'm a big fan of digital comics as well. I've shouted them out on the show. I love that I can link my account to DCBService.com. 5% of those purchases go toward my order. It's just a great opportunity to give something back to them, while at the same time they're giving me some credit for doing it. So it's just a really cool energy that they got going on there. They're wonderful people if you've ever had a chance to meet them at conventions. So I just want to shout them out just because, it's at the end of the month and I can't really do an ad for new material yet because it's not out yet, but I really am a big believer in the site. So just wanted to shout them out. And over at InStockTrades.com, which is their sister site, they have Invisibles hardcover, book one, the deluxe edition. I have been waiting for this. I'm a huge fan of Invisibles. It's a Grant Morrison work, and this is actually the first year. It's Invisibles 1 through 12. And it's Grant Morrison, Steve Yowell, various other artists, Brian Boland cover. It's a 320-page book. This is regularly $30. It's $29.99. 45% off, only $16.49 right now at InStockTrades.com. They have a lot of these Vertigo deluxe hardcovers, and it's a great way if you're somebody who's been saying, there's some Vertigo series out there, and I just, from time to time I've wanted to explore Vertigo, but I just haven't had the budget for it. This is really a cool way to do it, because when you grab these deluxe editions with any of the Vertigo series that they have over at InStockTrades.com, you can grab like large amounts of issues, and Vertigo reads really well in big arcs. So I encourage you, if there's been some series you're like, hey, you know, I never read Vertigo before, or I've read Vertigo, but there's some series I want to try, this is really a great way to do it. I've done books like Walking Dead like this as well. I jumped on the bandwagon late, and I grabbed the deluxe hardcovers of those, and they're just beautiful volumes. It's really a nice, it's a special way to read it, because it's high-quality paper, really cool hardcover feel. You feel like you're reading something substantial. And these stories read well. There's a lot of depth to them when you read multiple issues in one sitting. So I can't recommend, if you've never done a deluxe hardcover, that opportunity enough just to kind of read comics a little bit different way. I like reading books monthly. I like these digital releases where they're portions of a monthly issue. I like, then obviously reading big series like this. It's cool that we can get our comics in so many different ways, from paper to digital. I like the idea that there's more. I don't look at one of them replacing the other. I look at it as just more opportunity to access the content in unique and different ways. And that to me is, I'm looking at certain things like the new newsstand. I grew up with that kind of thing where comics were in just more places. This is kind of that vibe again. It's almost a resurgence. So, please grab some of this stuff and enjoy it. That's the whole point of it. If there's something you've been digging and wanting to see, this is a great site to browse for it. Just kind of my own little editorial there. But that's dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com, wonderful sponsors of our show. Our next episode, we're going to be discussing Batgirl and the Movement, Supergirl number 28 in the Green Lantern, Red Lantern flipbook issue. We're also going to be discussing World's Finest. So we're going to be getting current with all of those books. So we've got an action-packed show coming your way with lots of cool content. Very diverse content there. We will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they then in guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you